welcome everyone. This is Andre's Restart. This is a Nintendo podcast, the weekly restart we do usually Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This week we're going to be talking about Charles Martinet, the voice of Mario for a very long time, is stepping down, moving on to different things. But we're also going to be discussing this online situation regarding Mario Bros. Wonder and potentially a fairly sizable hint about the Nintendo Switch 2 from the president of Nintendo, Shuntaro Furukawa. But before we dive into those topics, let me introduce our guest for the evening, and then we'll check in with the chat and we'll get things moving. Our guest this week is Paul Gale from Paul Gale Network. How you doing, man? Thanks for coming.
Very good. It's been a good day so far. We just finished some pretty heavy rains in the middle of August in Los Angeles, but yeah, all good. Thank you for having me on.
It's been raining a lot here too, actually. I'm here in Miami.
You guys get rain?
Oh yeah.
You guys
Lots
are
of
so
rain.
lucky, man. I wish I had
Summer
rain.
rain. Oh, because you're in Texas.
Yeah, it's way
Right
too
in the
hot for
middle
there
of
to
the
be
two
any
of us.
rain here.
It's kind of interesting.
103 degrees most days.
You're in California, Brandon's in Texas, I'm in Florida. Those are like the three hot states that are on the different edges of the
Very
of
true.
the country.
Very hot, but
Yeah.
very far away.
It's crazy. And
Yeah,
you guys, what?
I was like, today's like a regular summer day, just 2 days of rain and then back to, 90-degree whatever weather.
Yeah, I mean, this is not anything out of the normal either. It's just you're getting a lot of rain. There are going to be days that are really windy. Just
I think this summer's like
happens.
record heat for Houston, where I live. So
I did hear
Not
that there
good.
was some record hotness recently.
I think
but,
it's like
yeah.
when you take into account like the total global temperature or whatever, like the averages. It's like hotter in most places overall. Something like that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, and guys, my friend and co-host Brandon, there you go. You're nod narb today.
Yes, sir. I
Nod
mean,
narb.
technically, I'm not Narb like every day because it's still my name, just backwards.
You're not. There
I'm
you go.
backwards today. It's backwards day.
Hmm.
Tell your friends.
There you go. But yeah, we're gonna be just talking about Nintendo. Is there anything you guys want to bring up before I check in with the chat and we get the ball rolling?
I'm
Hold
sure
it
it'll.
back.
I'm sure it'll
Alright.
come.
We'll let it surface naturally. Okay. All right. So, how we're gonna do this, guys? As I've said last week, we're gonna do some Q&A to start things off for a few minutes. Let people roll in. Guys, like the stream; it really helps out the podcast. We very much appreciate it. And also, let me know how everything is looking and sounding. If there's anything off with the background music or our microphones, if this maybe I could balance up the levels a little bit, or if something looks off, just let me know now while we're getting started. That way, I can fix it now, as opposed to going and talking for 2 straight hours and it's just a horrendous mess the whole time. So please let me know if everything looks and sounds okay. If there's anything that can be adjusted, I would very much appreciate that. Push Player Games says it sounds great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Lethal Lawn. Thank you. Cool. So it seems like things sound good. That makes me happy. Awesome. All right. So there are some things people were adding me about earlier, or just bringing up in the chat. So let me put those up, and then we'll talk about them for a little bit. All right. So let me put this over here so I see that on this side. Okay, great. Perfect. All right. Ava James. 3D Mario, Metroid Prime 4 Cross-Gen, New Generation Pokemon, Bang Bang Bang, Switch 2 launch Q4 2024. I personally, I've been kind of advocating for like this kind of big 3 for like the latter half of 2024 next year. I do kind of feel like that is what Nintendo's sort of positioning themselves to put out, because we always get a Pokemon game, and given that we got DLC this year, I think it does make sense that there's likely another Pokemon game coming out next year, because it's pretty much an annual series. And I'm hoping, and I think there's some reason to think it might be something like a Legends game. We shall see. And then Metroid Prime 4, Metroid Prime 4 might be the greatest game ever made. I don't know. Like it's something that's gonna be really good. So we got that, and then 3D Mario. I feel like that should speak for itself. Like that's gonna be a heck of a lineup. Obviously, none of it's confirmed. It's all just kind of speculation, but it feels like pretty reasonable speculation.
Yeah, I mean, Prime 4 has been in the development. We know that for forever. And restarted in 2019, but still so long ago. And then, you know, I don't have 3D Mario, new one since Odyssey, so that's been, what, 6 years almost? Next 2 months from now? So, it's been a long time since we've seen 3D Mario. That should be around the corner. And yeah, Pokemon always comes out, so I don't see why not.
Yeah, I like this lineup right here. I mean, a good launch to me would be something that appeals to the mainstream that you just can't go wrong with, like a 3D Mario or Mario Kart. The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC is ending this year, so I don't think you want to have a Mario Kart game hot off the heels of that. But if that Nintendo Switch 2 comes out in the holiday, like November, that puts it about a year apart. That might be enough time. If it comes out in the next console in like April, maybe not a Mario Kart game because it's too close to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe still doing well with that DLC. So a 3D Mario plus tying in Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime 4 is obviously that one that I think we all agree would be perfect for that cross-gen. Metroid isn't big enough to sell 10 million on its own. I mean, it just barely did 3.1 with Dread, which is awesome. But now that the series looks like it's the healthiest it's ever been, throw it on that Nintendo Switch with that massive install base, build up the anticipation with Metroid Prime remastered, maybe a 2 and 3 HD beforehand, or a remastered or bundle of some sorts, and then really show off that technical prowess of Nintendo Switch 2 and like, this is why you get it on the new console, but don't worry, 140 million people, we've got you covered. You've been waiting for a long time. That's just the best of both worlds. And, Nintendo has done something like it before with Twilight Princess, with Breath of the Wild. Those are a little bit different scenarios, but I can see Metroid Prime. For Pokemon, though, Scarlet and Violet came out November 2022. I think the earliest we see a new full generation is like that holiday 2025, or at least when Nintendo Switch, when it's got like some meat on the bones. Pokemon Company doesn't want to launch Pokemon on a non-established console yet with a small install base. They want to have it on something that's got tens of millions of people already for that guaranteed oomph, big sales. But a Legends game, I like that idea. But
yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
All
right. We'll see what happens. I'll say this because there's not any planned Metroid topics for the evening. Of course, if you guys bring it up in the chat during the Q&A sections, we may get to it. But last time you were on, what's the last time you were on? A time you were on before we got the June Nintendo Direct. I know we had a discussion about the Metroid releases, and your speculation was that we might see like Prime Remastered. We got Prime Remastered in February, and then we get Prime 2 Remastered sometime this year, and then Prime 3 maybe sometime early next year, and then that would kind of position Prime 4 for like a second half of 2024 sort of timing. And what I think was interesting about this is that now that it feels a little bit more obvious based off some recent rumors we've gotten that we kind of believe. But there were also rumors around that time when you said that they were suggesting it could come up by the end of the fiscal year. But you're like, you were kind of feeling like they need to kind of put out the Prime games. And we don't know for sure yet, but it kind of feels like your speculation on that has been, it seems like an accurate trajectory.
I think so. I remember those days. I remember that conversation, and it was fun. Like, just the numbers fit so well if they do it. February, 7 months later, September with Prime 2. And we have a Nintendo Direct, so it'd be very easy between Nintendo Direct, Gamescom, Nintendo Live. Here's Metroid Prime 2. It's not like Metroid Prime is having this long, successful tail either. So Prime 2 is not even going to compete really with Prime 1. Prime 1, it sold its amount, it's going to trickle and sell those couple of thousands a month, but not like, oh, Prime 2, forget about Prime 1. No, it did the vast majority of what it's going to sell, period.
Yeah, if anything, Prime 2 might boost it a bit.
Maybe it has that, backwards help. And then what's 7 months later? That's called April. That's Prime 3. And then 7 months later, Prime 4, November. So I'm hopeful that the numbers side pay out.
Yeah.
So the fanboy in me really wants it, but the business side also says you're not competing and cannibalizing the market with too many Metroid games, because Metroid sells what it does and then has a very steep decline and then just a little bit, and it'll get a little boost. So we'll see. I mean, Nintendo Live is coming up very soon. This is the thing that I was teasing earlier. If it's not me talking too long in a row.
No, that's not. It's okay. Go for it.
All right. On Twitter, I shared recently that I think 8 out of the 11 possible Septembers has there been a Nintendo Direct. So very strong percentage chance that we're going to get one in September. In the Nintendo Switch generation, 6 out of 6 years has there been a Nintendo Direct in September. But what if Nintendo's like, here's a Nintendo Direct on August 31st, so that on Saturday during Nintendo Live, we can have new games to play. Because Nintendo Live isn't looking like it's going to be a place to play a brand new slew of games. But if they had a Nintendo Direct right before, which would be August 31st, it could be, and being shown off over the next few days, is a playable Super Mario Bros. Wonder, playable Metroid Prime 2 Remastered, etc. I don't know about an August Direct. The safer me is saying September 14th. But I do like the August one, partially because I'm going to Nintendo Live and to play these games, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I really don't want there to be a Direct in August.
Yeah,
For purely selfish reasons. I'm going on vacation next week, so I would not be able to cover it. So if a Direct happened next week, it'd be like totally disastrous for me.
Yeah.
It would be like a worst case scenario, because I'll literally in a different country. Like I just won't be. It'll ruin my vacation, because I'll be like really upset I won't be able to cover it. But it'll also ruin my channel because I won't be able to cover it. So I really hope
we would make
happen.
it happen. We would do something. We would figure something out.
I don't know. It would be. I really
Between
really
me
hope
and
it
you,
doesn't
we
happen.
would
But-
figure something out.
But that's me being very selfish. But I mean, for Nintendo Live, like, Paul's gonna be there, by the way. His social media is linked in the description, so check that out, guys. I imagine you'll probably post a picture or two, or make some mention of your time in Nintendo Live when it happens.
Yeah, I'll definitely cover that, and whatever they have that's worthy of being put up, whether the booth looks cool, what's the kiosk like, anything to sit in, ride in, take a picture with whomever's there, games to be played. We know certain things like concert, gonna have some Mario stuff and some Zelda stuff available, but probably you won't be able to record during that time. I'm just guessing. And then some tournaments for like Mario Kart and Smash Brothers. But what's really unknown is just how much of a show are they going to have in terms of playing and interacting with. Because Nintendo, you've been to E3, correct?
No, I haven't.
You haven't been to E3.
Not physically, no.
You've seen E3s enough, though, to know like their booths are
Magical.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll definitely take pictures and videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want E3 to return, because I want that opportunity to kind of go and experience, like, it's almost like Nintendo creates like a little mini theme park, right? Like we did with Zelda, for example, or they did with Animal Crossing. Like, I want that opportunity. And I was always kind of hoping that I would be big enough as a channel to kind of go to E3 for the Metroid Prime 4 blew out. That's not going to happen, probably.
Yeah, that'll likely never happen.
Well, I mean, is E3 already canceled for sure for next year?
No, it's not. Nobody thinks it's
Oh.
coming back. I always am the optimist that believes that there's a chance in anything working out. But I'm also a realist, so it's not the most likely. But I'm still hopeful. You got June. Here's Metroid Prime 4. The game's out in November. Get to play it.
Yeah, I
There you go,
mean, like
Andrew. That's for you.
it's possible, right?
Let's do it.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be E3 though. It could be like a PAX or a Nintendo Live where they just really dedicate to previewing a game or two, and they kind of really build it up as a nice, cool little booth. Like that Breath of the Wild booth they did back in 2016 was magical. So,
Awesome.
you know, I just hope I get the opportunity someday to like be a part of that. So, Prime 4, big Prime 4 event sometime next year. I'll go. But let's actually get into the chat. I have literally a Q&A banner, but I don't even think we
I
technically
think we
done a
did one
question.
question.
It was not even a question. It was more like our thoughts on some kind of like their thoughts. Yeah, AB James thoughts. But let's do a couple questions, and then I'll mention something about the channel, and then we'll get into things. So let's see here. Let's see. I'm just kind of looking through. Samuel talks about games. Prime 4 is probably already content complete. Probably just bug fixes from here on. I believe that that's kind of where we're at, or close to it. I feel like, you know how we recently got news that Tears of the Kingdom was delayed about a year for like polish. I think we're in that territory for Prime 4. I kind of think we're in that window just because Nintendo's been more quiet about Prime 4, we got nothing to show. But when they're actually close, that's when they're going to start to show.
What was the source on the rumor that the game was done like this year?
What?
You had a source, I believe, for a rumor that suggested the game was done.
Can't talk about that.
Oh, okay. I thought we had talked about that on the podcast before.
I mean, I can talk about that. Someone said that I think is very trustworthy that Prime 4 is done, you know, but I can't tell you, I can't tell you who that is.
Okay, that's why I don't remember the source then.
And and also there's a lot of wiggle room with what done is, right? Content complete.
Right.
They say it's gone gold. I don't think it's gone gold. So
I mean, it could be that the original Switch version is pretty much done. They're just working on like the Switch 2 version.
The earlier a game is almost done, if they're going to spend that much time to polish it, almost speaks to just how big and ambitious the title is. Like if they're willing to not have a game release in this quarter or whatever quarter it is and say, no, it's big enough that we'll wait a whole year to just polish the heck out of it. That must be worth it in their minds, you know? They must have a lot behind that. Because they're not rushing to release it early, you know?
It's the only other game they've actually officially announced a restart for, other than Breath of the Wild.
So what's interesting about what we're talking about here, and I think it's a great point you bring up, Paul, because and Brandon, you bring up a great point too. Like I think you're both sort of suggesting that this game is a big deal. I think people who aren't Metroid fans don't realize what we're personally excited for. Like we're kind of thinking like this year's hype was Tears of the Kingdom. At least for me, like next year's hype is Metroid Prime 4. Like I am holding them in similar esteem. Now, am I going to say I honestly think Metroid Prime 4 probably could get like a 95, 96, maybe even a 97 or 98 on Metacritic. I do think it's probably going to fall in that range. I could be wrong, right? We'll see. But like, I do think there's that kind of potential. So
Metroid Prime's hit that range before.
Right. I mean, actually, even the remaster hit 94. So
there you go.
Yeah,
if that was a new game, not a remaster, I guarantee you'd be higher. Some people rating a remaster off the top say, excuse me, I can't give it as high of a score as I would have because it's a remake, it's a port, it's a remaster, you know? I'm going to mute myself for 1 second.
Paul's board
So-
voice.
Sorry. So I think it would be even higher than a 94 if that weren't the case. Because the original game was getting 10s left and right, you know? This one did
Yeah.
too. Very, very good game.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm with you on Metroid Prime 4 could be another one of those 97 kind of, wow, this is a game of the year quality title, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And something else, kind of going back to the point you brought up earlier about how if it is indeed the case, the game's been kind of done and they're kind of just taking about a year to polish it up, like Tears of the Kingdom. They also did this for Super Mario Odyssey. When the Switch and Breath of the Wild came out, we heard that they were basically done with Mario Odyssey and they held it off. They were holding it off, polishing it up. And Mario Odyssey is also that kind of game. It's a, if it wasn't for Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey would have won Game of the Year. Like, it was 1A, 1B. Like, in terms of Metacritic scores, I think Mario Odyssey for a while was actually considered higher than Breath of the Wild. So very, very high quality stuff. So it is very interesting that if this is indeed the case, that Prime 4 is being held off, they are polishing it up, waiting for that right time to strike with it. There could be a correlation here. It may be the case why some people have been suggesting that Prime 4 could come out by the end of the fiscal year, because they've heard the game is done, so they think it should come out by the end of the fiscal year. Not so much that it will. And Nintendo may be saving it for the right time, because Nintendo could have popped out Tears of the Kingdom probably a few months sooner if they wanted, but they didn't, because they were kind of trying to time it in a place that made the most sense for them. And like, thinking about how this year has gone, I kind of now understand better why they chose May for Tears of the Kingdom, because they wanted to space out their lineup of games, right? They wanted something really big to carry them throughout the year, to kind of hold things off until they can get to the holiday. And obviously they've had Pikmin 4 in a little bit of in the middle, but that's like a smaller blip, right? So I kind of see where they're going with this, and I'm not sleeping on Prime 4. That's all I'm gonna say. Having Hope 5. I'm hoping that Nintendo will give us Metroid Prime 4 news soon. I have a video probably coming out tomorrow, assuming there's not any breaking news. That's kind of going over my thoughts on Metroid. It's a Metroid Prime 4 video, and I was just kind of speculating on, is it going to show up in the Direct tomorrow? And I don't want to spoil the video, but basically I do think there's a good chance. Am I fully committed to it showing up at the Direct in September? No, but I think there's a pretty good chance. What do you guys think? Are you guys a little skeptical?
I'm just trying to define soon for a game we've been waiting since 2017
right.
to hear more
soon
about.
Could still be sometime next year. So
yeah,
I'd be thrilled if this September it was showing off. I just wonder. I try to think like Nintendo from that marketing perspective. What do they put at the end of the tagline? Coming 2024. That's it. First quarter, quarter two. Do they give the date? Because that seems like they're not ready yet, unless if it surprises us and it's very early in the year. So would they show off a teaser trailer just long enough and say 2024? I think that would be enough. I mean, I'd be okay with a new updated logo. Personally, just give me anything. But I think people have been waiting so long that on the one hand, people would be okay with anything. But they also want to make their first official reveal of it, not counting that 2017 E3, significant. Feel like it's got something that they are proud of behind. And that means you have to show a decent amount. But showing a decent amount also kind of indicates it's coming out sooner than later. Unless if it's just this perfect balance of it's not too much, but it's enough to get people's hype, doesn't have a quarter behind it, just has a year. You don't show off a Nintendo Switch 2 version that looks too good. If we are correct in that it's even a cross-gen game, who knows?
Right.
I'm waiting for the day that this Nintendo Direct is the one that,
Yeah. Every time there's a Direct, we're like, hey, this is it. I feel it in my bones, right?
This is the one.
Yeah. I'll I'll say that it seems like we all believe Prime 4 is coming out sometime next year. So if it is coming out sometime next year, it's very possible that Nintendo will show it off in this direct. Like if we just think of it from that perspective, because let's say even if it's a November game, Nintendo could totally show it off in a September direct. There have been games Nintendo's announced in the September direct that come out about a year later. Splatoon 3 is a good example of that. That I think that was announced September 2020. No, actually, I think that one had a longer window. No, yeah. So it was announced. Actually, I'm thinking more on it. So it was announced actually at the beginning of 2021.
Yeah, because I think it was announced in like a February direct.
Yeah, it was a February direct 2021. Then they had an update. They skipped the E3 2021 for Splatoon 3, which is odd. And then in the September direct of 2021, they gave us a more significant trailer. And then it came out September of the year after. So that was almost like a year and a half from announcement to release. Prime 4 at this point, we believe going to have an even shorter window than that, right? And Nintendo's announced big games in September directs like Bayonetta 3, Kirby's Forgotten Land. So
we just mentioned 3, which I
Yeah.
believe was announced. I believe it was announced in September direct and released in the following October.
Yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3 didn't have too long of a window of wait either.
No, that
when they put it
that was
off
like a
to, like-
6-month window almost or something.
They even bumped it up. Remember, they were like September.
Yeah.
Nope, now coming in July 29th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
That
were
was
very
awesome.
quick about that one. Yeah, so I mean, it's totally possible that Prime 4 is showcasing this direct. But it's also totally possible in the case of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, right? Like they could show it off in a February direct and it comes out in the summer. Like, so, Nintendo has options, but one thing I feel confident in saying, and there'll be a lot more details about this particular subject tomorrow, assuming there's not any breaking news. But there's going to be a game or two we don't know about for next year that will be in the direct, like Nintendo games. So, whatever those games end up being, there's gonna be something. But moving on here. What's this? Joy CJ. Anyone else feel as if we're about to go through a Mario season? Like Switch had Zelda on the forefront, and Switch 2 will have a lot of Mario titles.
It'd be nice. We haven't seen
Okay.
too many, other than now we're getting Mario Wonder, but before then, it's mostly just spin-offs. Because it's been so long since Odyssey, and a lot of the sports titles that were coming out were just kind of like okay, and that was like most of the Mario content every year is sports titles for a while. So it'd be nice to see more like, I mean, we're already starting to see it with Mario Wonder and Super Mario RPG remake, but some like nicer, more big budget Mario games would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, we got the Peach game coming out sometime next year, right? If the rumors of 3D Mario, that makes sense. And as Paul is saying, like Mario Kart it seems like it's not too far off either, right?
Yeah,
so, like,
Mario
those are all
Kart is
big Mario
interesting.
stuff.
A decade of Mario Kart 8.
I'm curious if Mario Kart 9 will come out, because if they keep trying to sell Mario Kart 8 DLC on Switch 2, then they may want to wait. But if the online it doesn't work the same on Switch 2, then maybe it's just not an issue. Who knows?
Yeah, I do feel like I don't know if I want to call it like a Mario season, because I mean it is going to be kind of like a Mario season, I guess you could argue, but the Switch started with Breath of the Wild, but it was just Breath of the Wild. It wasn't like there was a number of Zelda games, right? Like with Mario,
True.
We're gonna have several Mario related games, and maybe Donkey Kong's around the corner, and that's sort of they're part of the same universe. So between the Peach game, the 3D Mario RPG, Mario Wonder, Mario Kart, with the next couple years, like it's gonna be a very good, healthy amount of Mario content. But
yeah,
like
it all
new
seems
stuff,
to
'cause it does
start
feel
with
like
the Mario movie seemed to spawn all this new Mario renaissance.
And speaking of the Super Mario Brothers movie, it's National Movie Day, if I'm not mistaken. That's what it's called, on August 27th. And
okay.
it's not that Super Mario Brothers movie ever left theaters. It's just that it's down to like 64-ish theaters left in the United States that have never stopped playing it in these like last 137 or so days when it released. But like 3,000 or so theaters or so are confirmed to reopen to play it on August 27th. So
Oh, nice.
if you watch the numbers, it's like, the Super Mario Brothers movie, top selling movie of the year, Barbie coming up very close, where they're like 67 million apart. I know a lot of Nintendo fans that already probably own it on Blu-ray, 4K, are like, I'm gonna go watch it that one more time in theaters to help Mario out. And technically, it's not a re-release because it never left. It's just more theaters, bringing it back for that special day. And I think it's also like $4 a ticket for these movies or something like that. Maybe it depends on the theater, but
Some deals.
yeah, I have the movie, so
I haven't
not
seen the
really going to
Barbie
be
movie
there
yet.
for the movie, but-
And I haven't. No one's forced me to go watch the Barbie movie, so I haven't watched the
I
Barbie
would
movie.
like to see it just because
It is good.
people are saying it's good, and I'm just like, I don't know how they released a Barbie movie that might actually be good, but if it is, I'll watch it.
Yeah,
You know-
I'm excited for the One Piece live action that's coming
That
out
should
at
be
the end
good.
of the month. I'm getting hyped for that. Even though typically live action adaptations are terrible, this might be the one that's good. There's a lot going riding in its direction. Like the creator was involved, the cast is great, the budget seems pretty good, but then we got to move on. So I'm not gonna get too deep into my One Piece fantasies, but I'll get to a couple more chats here, and then we're moving on. Giancarlo added me. Andres Restart. How would you react if the next 3D Mario is cross-gen? I would be totally fine with that. It wouldn't bother me. I'd be a little confused just because I think Nintendo probably wants. I think the next 3D Mario is going to be a switch to exclusive. But it really comes down to how Nintendo's marketing and pushing things. And I just want the next 3D Mario to kind of really blow my mind. And I think by being cross-gen, there is some things that potentially limit it. Of course, I say that, and I'm here. I am kind of hyping up Prime 4, which I totally believe is going to be a cross-gen title, right? So I think it's totally possible that it can be cross-gen. It could still be amazing, but I don't think it'll be. And if it is, cool. I'll be slightly confused, but still very happy because 3D Mario is going to be amazing regardless.
Yeah. Is Nintendo Switch powerful enough to fulfill Nintendo's ambition for what they want the next 3D Mario to be? Did Bowser's Fury give us a glimpse of what they want? But they want to expand so big that, they have to go on a next console. The CPU has to be greater to handle more geometry and bigger, more crazy, wild ideas. Depending on how ambitious the next Mario game is, not to dumb it down, but if it's not like super crazy wild, then yeah, take advantage of being on two platforms and just make one, visually quite a bit better. So what does that say for Metroid Prime 4? Well, maybe they realize they have to put it on two, and that's part of the reason why it's also taking that long. It's making everything work on two different platforms, maximizing both.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be why Prime 4 is taking so long because they need to make sure there's two versions that are completely ready to go, running as well as they can, and especially with the Metroid Prime series. I mean, Mario Odyssey was 60 frames per second, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think the expectation for now both 3D Mario and the Metroid series is to be 60 frames per second, and so both games. In this hypothetical, 3D Mario is also cross-gen, but I don't think it is, right? But hypothetically, right, like that would take a lot of work to make sure there's a 60 FPS version for Switch, but then also, they have a Switch 2 version, right? That's pushing things even further. So that's tough. But
I imagine if they're cross-gen, that would mean they were probably built with the Switch in mind first, and then the Switch 2 after, especially 4 or Prime 4, because I mean that's just probably true. Because I doubt in 2019 they were like, you know what, we just gotta move it right onto the next gen console.
And we have to. Sorry.
No, sorry, I was almost done. But just They were probably making Prime 4 with the original Switch in mind already. So making sure that works on the original Switch probably wasn't a big deal because that was probably their target platform anyways. And they probably just worked on the Switch 2 version after. But for Mario, we don't know what target platform it was originally because we don't know when they started developing that. So if it was a target platform Switch, then, very easy. You just upgrade the Switch 2 version and you already were targeting the Switch at 60 FPS originally anyways. But if it was made for Switch 2 originally and then they decided maybe, hey, we should do cross-gen, then that might be a little more difficult.
Yeah. I think that with the timing of when they announced Metroid Prime 4 first, at that June 2017 E3, the game was obviously way too early to be shown off, but must have been in development for a few months, right? Maybe February, something like that. And we also have to expect that it probably was in development for a year and a half. Too much after that, and I don't think Nintendo would allow it to go. So my guess is that it stopped development around September or so. And then that Retro Studios probably took on October, November. We heard about it in January of 2019. But in reality, it probably started development at Retro the prior October or November. So by November, October next year, that's a 5-year development time. That's a significant amount of time for Nintendo to sit on a game. And I think the timing is it's too early in Nintendo Switch's life for them to
6 years actually.
From
end of 2018 to end of 2024.
28. Yeah. Sorry. 5 years is this October, November. Right, correct. If this game comes out October next year, that is what I believe is a 6-year development cycle because Nintendo said it we're going to get to that later on. Do you think that Nintendo and Charles Martinet just figured out, starting today, Charles Martinet is not going to be the voice of Mario? This was known before. This is when the announcement is. Nintendo's saying we're apologizing to let you know that Retro Studios is now, well, not apologizing for that, but apologizing for the delay. Retro Studios is now, no, it's not like that day they started.
There was discussion, a plan put together.
So you're looking at a 6-year development cycle. That's Breath of the Wild territory, Tears of the Kingdom territory, Ocarina of Time territory. This is going to be one of Nintendo's biggest, most expensive games. Also, it's Retro Studios, which is US based, and they're bringing in so many people from Naughty Dog and Activision and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people with a lot of clout behind their name. They're being brought in for a reason. Nintendo's treating this as this is a franchise that's reputable, but it doesn't sell in the AAA category, and it should. Let's make it not just reputable from the scores from EGMs and IGNs and stuff like that, but sales to represent that high quality. So we're going big with this. 6 years.
We need to move forward.
Yeah.
Quick thing, because I just want to ask. Right, like when I do the time stats for this video, I'm gonna instead of saying Q&A in the beginning, I'm gonna say Metroid Prime 4 Centric Q&A, because that's clearly what this has been. One last little thing on this, and then there's a super chat I want to get to, and then we're moving on. Does Metroid Prime 4, and I'm gonna put this as a poll in the chat, so I'm gonna start this poll now, and you guys can interact with it throughout the podcast, and then when we're done with our topics, we'll come back. Take super chats and Q&A, and we'll actually close out the poll and see where it's at. But does Metroid Prime 4 hit AAA sales numbers? Like
define that.
All right, I'm gonna put out a number. Does Metroid Prime 4 sell more than 8 million? I'm putting out a poll.
Why
you guys can give me your
million?
answers. Well, I was gonna say
you might
10.
pick 5 or 10.
I was gonna say 10, but I was like, people might not agree with that, so I'll say 8. But also, 8 million is kind of like the threshold Zelda was at before it broke out. So if Metroid Prime 4 getting past the 8 million threshold, I think speaks volumes for its growth.
I mean, it'd be a huge deal.
At the end of the day, it's an
arbitrary.
At the end of the day, it's an arbitrary number, but I'm just putting out a number there, right? So,
right.
I think 8 million. does Metroid Prime 4 break through and sell more than 8 million? What do you guys think? Yes or no?
The optimistic me is going to say yes. And that's because I have faith that this is going to be not just a good title, but a remarkable title, and landing on a system where it's destined to sell well. Because despite Nintendo having some platforms in the past that broke 100 million, like Wii, you didn't have a large chunk of the core audience on it. And Nintendo DS, a relatively underpowered system based off of the technology that was around that era, looking at Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and even Wii to DS. And here you have this perfect recipe of you've got core gamers, you have an established audience, you've got a lot of people behind it, a big budget. I think it's Metroid's time to be prime, selling well, and we'll really be able to have a better answer when we see that trailer. Does it look awesome? Yeah. Are you controlling the ship? Does it have some kind of creative? You could switch between first-person perspective and third to bring in more audiences. Is there some kind of wild multiplayer thing? Like, is there some kind of extra hook? Like Tears of the Kingdom. Nobody thought back in 2019 E3 the sequel to Breath of the Wild is going to have a Minecraft thing to totally bring in a younger generation that loves Minecraft into the Legend of Zelda's Breath of the Wild's world, right? So there could be something in Metroid Prime 4 that none of us are even thinking of, like, oh my gosh, the game's also having this? Didn't see that. And I think that's what they're doing, and that's part of the reason, in addition to the polish, that Metroid's going to have something we haven't talked about yet. Unless if we said it randomly, like, oh, multiplayer or something, or, whatever. But
there's...
yes.
Yeah. There's so much... I don't want to derail the podcast, so there's so much we could talk about for Metroid Prime 4, but we'll have to save it for another time. But, with the polls up, so we'll come back to this towards the end of the show. But there's a super chat I'd like to get to. Taker610, thank you for this super chat. Very much appreciated. Taker asks, could Nintendo reveal Switch 2 at E3 2024? And my simple answer is yes. I do think that might be a little late for my expectations, but totally feasible. My only thing is that I'm kind of considering that Switch 2 comes out like in the September-October window, just to give it more room to put out multiple games before the holidays. So if it's revealed at E3 2024, that's quite a quick turnaround to come out by, say, September, right? So then it would more likely mean it comes out like late October, November, like how it's happened in prior generations. So then we'd be losing out on that opportunity to have multiple games going to the holiday. But that's just my speculation, right? That could be what it is. But I'm personally expecting Switch 2 to be revealed before then. But it is totally possible. Of course, E3 also has to happen, too. That's a whole other consideration.
I give it a 5% or less chance. I'm not even sure E3... I'm not confident E3 is going to come back. Like, I have a little hope, but, like, very low for me in general. And plus, even if it does, I don't think even if the timing did make more sense, I don't think they would announce it at E3. I think they would do their own event to announce it.
Okay. What do you think, Paul? Is there going to be a Switch 2 reveal at E3 2024?
Reveal it in June. Drop the price of Nintendo Switch right after, because you would need to have a few months between then and October. 5 months, not to have Switch sales tank. System come out in October, November. If there's an E3 next year, yeah, Nintendo could reveal it then. It wouldn't be a bad spot. Reveal it then, and it has to come out that fall. Nintendo in the past, they reveal something and it would come out a lot of time later. a long time after. There you go. They don't need a long window this time. They could show it a few months later, boom. So yeah, very possible.
Okay. All right. So we're about ready to jump into the topic. So guys, if there's any questions you ask me, I'll try and get to them after the topics. I want to get through the topics, and we'll close out with some Q&A. We'll get back to the poll. We'll get to the super chats. Something I want to say, I think I mentioned it, but this will be the last. There will not be a podcast next week because I'm not going to be in the country. So we're taking a 1 week break from the podcast. I am going to try to do maybe one more live stream before I leave. We shall see, but just kind of putting that out there so people are aware. And the videos are going to be coming out. I'm not saying every video is going to be very basic editing, but more often than not, the videos are going to have very basic editing, but the videos are going to still come pretty much every single day. Just, the audio will be fine, the music will be fine, but there probably won't be as much cuts and things just because of time. I'm literally going to be gone in a different country for a whole week, so I kind of have to do double the work in half the amount of time. But anyways, that all said, let's now jump into our first topic. And that is the news of the day. The voice of Mario steps down. And let me see if I can go ahead and read you what was said by Nintendo on this, in case you missed it. Let's see here. Did I bookmark it or did I? Yes, I bookmarked it. All right, here we go. All right, so Nintendo. In fact, let me just share it on stream so you guys can see. Present. Share screen. There we go. Okay. So, Nintendo of America at 10 a.m. today. We have a message for fans of the Mushroom Kingdom. Please take a look. Charles Martinet has been the original voice of Mario in Nintendo games for a long time, as far back as Super Mario 64. Charles is now moving into the brand new role of Mario Ambassador. With this transition, he will be stepping back from recording character voices for our games, but he'll continue to travel the world sharing the joy of Mario and interacting with you all. It has been an honor working with Charles to help bring Mario to life for so many years, and we want to thank and celebrate him. Please keep an eye out for a special video message from Shigeru Miyamoto and Charles himself, which we will post at a future date. And that is what they posted today. So, what do you guys make of this? He's done. Is this him retiring? Is this Nintendo wanting to go in a different direction? Is it a combination? My assumption is just that, he's been doing this for a long time, and they're getting ready for a new generation of Mario with a Mario Bros. Movie. I think it's kind of a combination. I think Nintendo would have been happy to keep Charles Martinet, but I think they're also ready to move forward, and I think Charles Martinet wants to move on to do different things. That's my speculation. I know a lot of people have kind of wondered if Nintendo's trying to push him out. I don't feel that's the case. I feel like Nintendo really respects Charles. That's what I at least interpret from everything they've shown. He had multiple cameos in the Mario Bros. Movie. I feel like they're paying respects to him here with this message. Like, how often can you think of a single specific person that's not a developer that is given this much attention by a company like Nintendo for a game series? I think it's out of the ordinary in a good way. And I also think the fact that there's a special video coming with Miyamoto and Charles together, that I'm very excited to see what that's going to be. So my take is that this is all in good spirits, and it's just the time to move on. The day had to come eventually, and this is the day. That's my interpretation. What do you guys think?
I'm curious how often he actually goes in to record new lines, because a lot of the lines I assume can be reused. So I'm curious if they can reuse lines for a while, or if they'll choose to redo lines for a while, or if they will go with somebody new. Honestly, I think eventually going with somebody new is good, because I don't want the situation with like Disney and say Darth Vader, where I forget the name of the voice actor for Darth Vader, but essentially they license his voice to be used like remade with AI like indefinitely. So like he'll always be the voice of Star Wars or of Darth
Uh,
Vader, and I'm just like I don't really like that. It's like give I would I don't hate new directions on old characters as long as there's passion and love and a reason for them. So to get Mario a new voice, even if it's a different direction. I saw your video, Andres. You were talking about how Chris Pratt, he's the voice of Mario, the Mario movie, and it's a different take, but it's not bad. And a different take for Mario's voice. It's not Charles Martinet, even if it's different, or even if it's trying to copy him pretty closely. I don't know. Somebody new with a slightly different take is fine by me. Though it is sad to see Charles go because he's been Mario like my whole life.
yeah, I'm a little emotional about it too.
Yeah. I will say one thing that's kind of interesting in that little release of theirs. He's actually been voicing Mario earlier than Super Mario 64. He was Mario in 1992 with Super Mario Brothers Pinball and Mario
Oh.
Teaches Typing. So he actually hit that 3-decade mark. He was globally known thanks to Super Mario 64 in '96, but Pinball and Typing came out before then, and he was puppeteering as Mario, behind the scenes with the animatronic, at various trade shows and conventions. But yeah, 3 decades of voicing Mario. Okay, come on, Nintendo. But yeah, it's a bittersweet thing because he's a fantastic human being, and if you've ever met him in person, you know that he is who you want to meet. Meet your hero, meet your star, meet your celebrity. Some people say, don't. Like, he is the one that if you could meet someone and have that positive impression of them ahead of time and be satisfied when you met them, that's the guy to, hold that up. I've had many interactions with him over the years. We met for the first time at E3 2002. So he's been a friend for over 2 decades, and he's great. So, seeing him step down from that role, I see it. That part's sad, but I'm very happy that he's being included as Mario ambassador, because if you think of Mario as being a jovial, fun, charismatic, cute, all around good person that does good and happy, he really is that character. So if he's going to have a presence at E3s, at conventions, I'm seeing him this Saturday in Long Beach at the Collecticon, and if he's going to still interact with fans, he'll have some type of Mario quality that he's allowed to still do. Nintendo's very protective of the role. Also, the way Nintendo has shifted is not just with Mr. Martinet, but look at Doug Bowser's presence as opposed to Reggie. Look at how much they show of Mr. Miyamoto, Bill Trinen, Nate Bildorf, Mr. Aonuma now, as opposed to they did, just several years ago. The generation is shifting. Nintendo doesn't want you, the audience, to have as much of a connection with Mr. Miyamoto as just these games. They don't like to, have too much of a celebrity aspect to their developers. It's more about the games. They want the games to be what you think of when you think of Nintendo, and not necessarily, and I'm talking about like the grand 20 million people, 30 million people. So it became very much of a connection of Charles to Mario, and you could see the public outcry when Chris Pratt was first announced as Mario, and you could see all of that. Nintendo doesn't want to have too much of this extra drama if a certain person is not working on a game, this and that. So I think this is a way for them to, still respect Charles, because he's a professional voice actor. He could change his pitch. He could make Mario more deep, less animated, higher, lower, tone it down. He could change everything, you know? You don't need to have someone else hop in technically for that role. But if you want to kind of break away from characters and visibility and having certain people be synonymous with a character or a Nintendo Direct presentation, this is kind of how the company's shifting, you know? Doug Bowser's plenty charismatic. He could talk, he could deliver. We don't see him as much as Reggie. It's just a different attitude that Nintendo's doing. So I think this is kind of a part of that. It's we're going less with people and focusing more on games and technology and franchises, not so much on here's everybody who's behind it.
Yeah, you think back like the Wii U era, and what was interesting about the Wii U era. I mean, Wii U era is also technically the 3DS era, right? But like that time of Nintendo, it like they kind of lacked in the content, like the actual games. So a lot of their shows were filled with a lot of personality.
Mm-hmm.
We got to see a lot of skits and things like that, which are really cool. And I think they kind of helped to really bolster a little bit of the impact of the games that they did have to offer, right? Especially for the core Nintendo fan base. But as Nintendo grows larger, as they've gone, from that era to this era, I do think it makes more sense to, I guess, what go more macro. Like it is just here are the games. Now it isn't to say there isn't anything, right? Like I've noticed that they've been doing more of those developer diaries when some of their major games come out, like with Pikmin 4 and Tears of the Kingdom. And we go a little bit further back, they did it for Metroid Dread as well. And I hope that becomes more consistent, because that was something I've kind of missed. I want to get more insight into the game development, their thought process, and these different personalities that work with Nintendo. But with the interviews, they're on a website that you read, right? It's not like a big video skit that millions are watching. It's definitely a different feel and look. And even with the Mario Bros. Movie, we had some moments with Miyamoto. And I don't want to say they were sparse, but like this was, for the movie, right? Like if there was another 3D Mario game, we wouldn't see that. Yeah, we don't even have the live conferences anymore, right? Because the live conferences also, we'd see them there, and there's none of that anymore. It's just directs.
I do like the personality. Like personally, for me, these people deserve to be superstars. But that also takes away, and a lot of it is also the Japanese mentality, the culture. I remember, meeting Mr. Miyamoto for the first time. Not that he wasn't big yet, but we met like in 2002, and I was just able to talk to him. It was actually, several of us. Mr. Iwata was there, George Harrison, Mr. Miyamoto, and myself, and Rich Amtower from the Nintendo Treehouse. He introduced us, and here we are at E3. The show's closing, and it's just like 5 of us, 6 of us talking. Over the years, it's been more and more superstardom around Mr. Miyamoto. We're like at the Super Mario Brothers movie premiere, he walks here and then a crowd of people come around. Nintendo doesn't really like that. Just one, for the safety of the individual, because you could have people get shoved and knocked over, and two, just it's you talk about superstardom. Some people like to actually just be humble and be recognized for their product and not for, my face and actions, and just like, yeah, cool. People like it. Awesome. Let's get back to work.
Yeah.
No, I do like the shows. Like Iwata and Reggie, Smash Bros. That was awesome.
Oh yeah.
What sells games? Having Robot Chicken do a skit for Nintendo, or Nintendo focusing on making the best games, delivering them, and selling them. At the end of the day, that kind of wins over the showmanship.
Yeah, let's think about this for a moment, right? Like, so Star Fox Zero, because they had a few different things. They had the Robot Chicken thing. They also had the Robot Chicken was something else, but the Muppets. They had the Muppets for Star Fox, and they also had like this animated little short they also made as well, which is really cool. But imagine, I don't know what the budgets were for those, But what if all the money that went to those projects just went into putting in a multiplayer to Star Fox Zero? What would have made a bigger difference? The multiplayer, right? Now, I don't know what the budget would have been. Maybe that's not even a close comparison. I imagine it probably isn't.
Yeah.
But,
But
you know.
time, it's still time, it's resources, it's managing, it's diverting attention away. It's probably a smaller percentage, like you said, $50,000 to do this shoot versus another $2 million to go into budget, right? Or whatever. But yeah, I think Nintendo, they also kind of needed it because they were struggling. So it's like, look at us.
Right.
This is that. And
doing what they could. They were doing what they could to kind of maximize what they had.
yeah.
Yeah. That was Nintendo marketing, doing what they can to but it's interesting because now there's been a switch. Like Nintendo marketing doesn't have to do that now, right? But like Nintendo just R&D software development is just firing on all cylinders. They got so many good. It's not just EPD, but like Nintendo just has games lined up.
No drought. This whole gen.
No drought.
Like
no drought at
all. That N64 GameCube Wii era, they had droughts. Usually in the last year of that system's life, there was nothing, and you couldn't wait for the new console to come out.
Yeah.
Nintendo Switch is still, firing off on all cylinders. It's selling, up there with everything else,
right.
Oftentimes beating the competition.
In the Switch's down year, it's out. The Switch's worst year. This last year, right? Let's assume it's like the Switch's down year before the Switch 2. It's still outselling the entire Wii U sales history, which is insane to think about. Yeah. Now, just kind of going back to this, the voice of Mario. Couple things. Have we heard the last of Charles Martinet in a Mario game already? Or is there still more to come? Because obviously he's stepping down, but has he already recorded that stuff and we haven't seen it come out yet? Like, for example, is his voice in Mario Wonder, or is it already someone else new?
That we know he's not in the game.
We know he's not?
Super Mario Brothers Wonder does not have Charles Martinet in it.
Okay.
But what I don't know is, so I know that, but what I don't know is, what about the Luigi's Mansion 2 Dark Moon remaster remake coming out next year? Are his
assume it would just
lines
use the same audio?
Yeah, will it have the same audio? Or since the visuals are being touched up, re-recorded? Or just, synced up with
maybe
behind
maybe
the
they
scenes?
take the source code and just kind of output it at a higher bit rate.
Yeah.
Because they probably had to compress things for the 3DS version, and they just give us the less compressed version for Switch.
Another interesting one is Super Mario RPG. The original one didn't have voice acting in it yet, but could they have any sort of woohoo, yahoo in any of the little
Because there are cutscenes,
cutscenes.
Based off the trailer, that there was just music playing, right? So we don't know if there's sound effects or not.
So that one we don't know, but Wonder, no. The people that were speculating, Mario's voice sounds a little different. Is that Charles Martinet re-recording Mario lines for the first time in a while? Did his voice change, or is it someone else? Yeah, that's someone else.
Okay.
What's the source for that? Not that I don't believe you. I'm just curious.
There are some interviews online right now with Nintendo that clarified that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was listening to it, and it sounds like almost like a slightly higher pitched version of Charles Martinet. Like it sounds very similar, and without thinking about it, I would have thought it was it's just Mario.
Yeah, I'll
right?
have to go back and listen to it because I don't think I've listened to the trailer that many times after reacting to it live. So, which I couldn't hear very well. So I don't remember it sounding different at all, but I'll have to listen to it closer.
Yeah. I mean, it's very similar, right? So for those concerned that the Mario games are going to all of a sudden not feel right, they're probably going to feel fine. I imagine. I mean, we only saw a little bit in a trailer, so maybe it's a little different. But I think it's going to be fine. I'm not like concerned for it, Also, most characters don't have just one voice for their entire history, right? Like there does tend to be changes over time. And it's also like, are we expecting a significant voice acting for Mario moving forward anyway? I don't think we are, not in the games at least, just in the movies. And the movie was Chris Pratt, and it was great. So
It would
I
be
think that's
interesting if
fine.
the next 3D Mario had like a couple lines from Mario, like just short sentences, you'd say. That'd be interesting.
I
I'm
will say
curious if
Mario
they'll add
Wonder
voice
does
acting
have
for the
voice
other
acting.
characters.
It has like actual dialogue because the flower
Yeah, it
talks.
does.
It's making jokes and stuff. So
I mean, I wonder if the next 3D Mario game will have voice acting for like the main cast, and then Mario just says like a few things.
Well, Mario Sunshine had voice acting, so
yeah,
it wouldn't be
they
anything
could do it
new for
again.
the series.
Yeah, I forgot about that actually. So yeah, they could definitely do it.
Yeah, people didn't like it then though.
What's also going to be interesting is, sorry, Brandon.
Oh no, I was just saying that the voice acting and the cutscenes and the general story direction in Sunshine just wasn't very good. It was very, very weird.
Yeah.
What's interesting too is, Luigi has a very distinct voice. Wario talks quite a bit, depending on the Wario game, the WarioWare title, for instance. Waluigi and Baby Mario, Baby Luigi. Will the voices outside of Mario, because he already sounds similar enough to Charles that it's not going to be too great of a departure for people, to which a lot of people are going to be wondering, well, if it's not too different, why didn't you just have Charles tone it down a little bit? He's a pro. He can. He could speed it up. He could speak in foreign languages as Mario with that same Mario voice, But what happens when we hear Luigi or Wario? Like, are they going to change them up quite a bit or keep them similar-ish?
Because he voiced a number of the Mario characters, like at least Mario and Luigi. So, I assume he's not doing any voice work for Nintendo anymore. Like, it's all done. It's not just Mario. It's all done.
Mario, Luigi, Wario, Waluigi, Baby Mario, and Baby Luigi. Those were his official 6. That means the next Mario Kart game, Mario getting a power-up, the next Smash Bros. Game, which will happen eventually, the next Mario Tennis, it'll be slightly different, but not too jarring, I don't think. But the other ones I'm curious about, because we didn't hear Luigi's voice in the Super Mario Bros. Wonder trailer.
Yet. Yeah, like we don't. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, you're right. Not in the trailer. So it's gonna how different is that gonna sound? That is interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure, but let me ask you guys this: what do you guys make of that future video that they're gonna update us with? Like, why couldn't they just give us the video now? Why does it have to be at a later date? Like, is this gonna be of anything of significance beyond just kind of, taking us down memory lane? Is it just going to be, and I say just, I don't want just to make it sound like it's is less significant, because honoring, I think, Charles's legacy is very important. Right? And I do want to kind of talk a little bit about our favorite memories of his voice in Mario games. But before we get to that, I'm just kind of curious, like, do you think this update video or whatever it is, this video that Miyamoto and Charles are doing together, what is that going to be? Is it just going to be paying homage, or is there a little bit more to it than that?
Man, I don't really want to say either way. I mean,
you're not sure?
The point of the video should definitely be mainly to like be talking about like Charles Martinet and the history of Mario, and I don't think I don't know, having an announcement could be interesting, but I don't know if that kind of takes away from it, or it's just like it's not needed. Like, you can just upload just a video just about Charles Martinet, the history of Mario, that kind of thing. You don't need to tie it to anything. So I don't know if they will.
Yeah, I guess what I was thinking, because I didn't know that it's been confirmed that Martinet is not in Mario Wonder. Because I was thinking maybe we would get more info on Mario Wonder potentially. And it's like, hey, this is my last work as Mario in a game. But if that's not the case, then maybe it only makes sense to just have it be more like an homage video. Unless there's something else that he's worked on.
I think a good chunk of it, both the reasoning behind it and what it will probably be, is to pay tribute, to show fans that, hey, no bad blood. We respect someone who you love. We respect him too. We respect the fact that you respect him. And, we're building this new role so that at conventions, he can still be your gateway to Mario. I don't think they're going to change the Mario and Luigi voice acting clips that they have inside of the suits at Super Nintendo World anytime soon. You know what I mean? I think some of that stuff is just going to live on. And in toys, I don't think they're going to take toys from the store and then swap out Mario voice boxes or Mario Lego. Now in the future, possibly, but I think it's, they respect him enough, and he's been a huge part of the company for a very long time that, despite them kind of having this overall shift away from certain things, there's also certain things that you cannot avoid, and you cannot avoid, not putting people's fears to rest when it comes to why did you have this separation that was so beautiful for so long, and it's to be like, here's a little bit of a homage video, here's a little bit of our favorite things. I don't even know if they'll have for a couple of reasons, I don't know if they'll do a passing of the torch, because I don't know if they want someone else to be having
celebrated in the same way.
A big name. Introduce the new star, which is so-and-so. Hi. Because if Nintendo is kind of going away from building up superstars in terms of real humans, I don't think they're going to do that. Like that person, that new cast, they will be properly voiced, probably credited in the back of the games, but I don't know if they're going to be in magazines and interviews and online and social media and stuff like that. They're probably very closely, kept under Nintendo NDAs of what they could say, who they could talk to, if they could have a social media account, and not to overly popularize the human part. So unless if I'm wrong and they say, and Charles is also giving his blessing, so to speak, today to the new so-and-so, and I just don't see that being a part of it. But it could be. It's kind of an interesting thing. I'm glad that they're having a video, because I think he deserves that. You can see, I don't know what's it on Twitter now, but if you look at today's, announcement this morning, I'm trying to look real quick to see if I could find it. 21.1 million impressions, 190,000 likes, 9,000 retweets, 7,500 comments. It brought a lot of attention to it. So do it right and have one more video. If anything, it's trying to think of the expression. You have the potential to be newsworthy more than once instead of having everything in one day. Separate it, because that keeps Nintendo in conversation. So that's also part of the strategy. If you did one and done today, okay, it's a hot talk for today and tomorrow. You separate it by 2 weeks, and you're going to have a hot talking point where Nintendo's trending on Twitter again 2 weeks from now. So
keeps the conversation going until they have their direct in September, maybe.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to clarify something, because Nishquick added me in the chat. Why would they announce a game in that video? So I tried to clarify on this earlier. When I was talking about potentially an update on a game, it was from the perspective of not knowing that with the status of Martinet moving forward. Because I was coming at it from an angle of, well, if there's something else that Martinet might be working on that's a Mario game, maybe they might show that off in a video, maybe more Mario Wonder or something, if he was to be working on that. It's like, hey, look, this is some of my final work. Look forward to that. Like, that's where I was coming from with that. Not so much of like, hey, I think Nintendo should reveal, the next Mario Party or Mario Kart that's showcasing not Charles Martinet. Like that's not what I was trying to allude to at all. So just clarifying on that there.
Like maybe
But-
here is new footage of Super Mario RPG, which is Charles Martinet's last project. Like something like you just said, that could very much be it.
Yeah, we'll see.
As a
We
final
won't know
set-off.
until we see that. But I think it's a good point that maybe they're kind of spacing it out to keep the conversation going, have it be two separate things. Like maybe now it's putting up this message because Nintendo knows a lot of people are gonna be upset about it, and then they'll let that's another thing to consider, right? Like, because a lot of people are upset about this, and if they're kind of putting the information out now, letting people come to terms with it, then a little bit later they can actually do the hey, let's pay homage to this guy, you know. I think it makes sense for a few different reasons. So, yeah, I think that makes sense. But before we close out this topic, I just like to take a little bit of time, just kind of like reminisce a bit on like his work, and like for me, Mario 64 was my first Mario game. So, and that was his first. Like, I mean, it is interesting that he has done work beforehand, but like at Nintendo, like I guess, do we not count Mario Teaches Typing as a game? Right? It's I don't. It's a little bit of a gray area there, but point is, like for me, Mario 64, mainline Mario, that was my first experience with Charles Martinet. Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize I didn't think about that then. I was just like, oh, this is Mario. This is the voice of Mario, it's just kind of like that feeling we have, like, oh, he's the Italian plumber. Like in my outro videos, I have Mario sleeping, and I use Mario Odyssey footage. But if you pay attention, it's actually using the audio from Mario 64 when he's sleeping. And when he's sleeping, he's like dreaming about different pastas. And if you listen to my outro, be like, oh, ravioli.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's cool stuff. And I think he did great work with all the different Mario games.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything in particular, guys. Like, yeah, that was.
I mean, it's hard to put anything particular, just because, like, I also grew up with Mario 64, and he's just been the voice of Mario and does like everything. Like, I played so many Mario games. It's hard to pick out like one specific one where I was like, oh yeah, that's more Mario than the other Marios.
Yeah, I mean. Well, we could also look at it from like Luigi, right? Like he's also played Luigi, right? So like in Luigi's Mansion, he's like Mario, like when he's like scared, right? And you kind of hear the shrill, like that's
awesome.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. I'm gonna miss it, but I'm sure Nintendo's gonna do things that it still feels pretty good. Like the Mario Wonder stuff, when you listen to it, it still sounds pretty fine.
Yeah, and if you were told. Yeah, they just asked him to re-record lines and stuff like that, most people would say, oh, cool, good. And that's how close-ish they got someone just with a slightly different feel to do it. But, I don't want to spend too long on it, unless if you want, but me meeting Charles for the first time is probably one of the coolest experiences, because I was just a kid at E3, and
yeah.
I mean, I could tell this story. It's not too long, but
do it.
It was like my second or third E3. I want to say it was 2002, and Nintendo had this roulette table because GameCube just came out like several months earlier, and they had this, video screen up top of a 3D Mario moving around. And his eyes would look, because Charles Martinet was in the back, looking and talking and interacting with each person. And you kind of like a roulette table where you would sit there, you would play some games, answer some Nintendo trivia, and then you would win. And like I remember I won like a squishy GameCube and a squishy Game Boy Advance that it looks like the Game Boy Advance SP was life size, but you could squish it down. The GameCube was a little smaller, but it's made out of foam. But anyways, really cool, like cool swag, cool t-shirts back in the day. And then, it got to like, who are you? Who are you? And then, who are you? Oh, Paul Gale. And I'm like, it's me, Paul from Los Angeles. Woohoo, nice to meet you. And he did his, you sound like my long lost brother, but in his Mario voice. And how's it going? And this, and we talked and stuff. And I was like, man, that's really cool. At the time, though, 2002, we didn't know what Charles Martinet looked like. I can't think of what he looked like at the time. And I was asking, like, oh, Nintendo, reps, do you know if Charles is here? I mean, obviously he's here, but where? What does he
Back
look
then,
like?
the internet wasn't as like popular.
He wasn't in magazines.
Yeah.
Not even in like an Electronic Gaming Monthly or Nintendo Power or GamePro, which I avidly was reading back in the day, did I see a picture of him. So the representative said, oh yeah, awesome guy, super tall, silver hair, you'll find him. And I think I saw him in the distance, but I don't know who I saw. So I left a business card, and I took a chance, and I said, to the Nintendo roulette, ladies that were operating that booth, it was really cool talking to Charles Martinet earlier. I'd love to talk to him more sometime, interview. So for what it's worth, if you don't mind handing him the business card, I'd appreciate it. Like, all right, sure, we'll do. Thanks. And I get home from like E3 that day. I think it was that day, the last day of the show, maybe. And my mind is like kind of coming down into reality. And then my mom said, "Oh, Paul, you got a couple missed calls when you were gone. A Charles called," and I said, "Charles? I don't know what Charles." Like, didn't even dawn on my mind like this was it. It's like, yeah, Charles, like Charles from Nintendo or something. Like, Charles Martinet called? And like, what? And then just, yeah, like, oh my gosh, and I missed it because of traffic coming back home.
No.
And I said, yeah, but he left a number. Like, what? Charles Martinet left a phone number? It's like, yeah, I said, you could call him. It sounded really nice. Like, oh my gosh. So I called it like shakingly, and he answered. I'm like, hold on. So first of all, he actually called. He left a number and he answered, and he was having dinner at the time with all of these other Nintendo folks. So imagine the people of the era, anyone who was on board, Mr. Iwata, Shigeru Miyamoto, Peter Main, Howard Lincoln, old school Nintendo reps sitting at this table. And he's like, I'm having dinner, but how's it going? Like, I remember you were talking at the Mario place. Yeah, you're Paul from LA. Oh, if I ever had laryngitis, you could have my role. Oh my gosh, thanks. It was a really sweet moment, and I appreciated so much being like 17, 18 at the time. It was really cool. Like, never would I have thought, because I was a huge fan of Super Mario 64. That was my game. That was the game of that several years. And then we kept in contact for like a year. And at that time, I did see, this is how he looks like. So maybe it was you that I saw in the distance. We were just talking, a couple times over phone, mostly through email. And then, hey, I'm at E3, texted, here I am, let's meet up. And like, and it's on Twitter. It's actually, I just recently put it back to my go-to X page or whatever it's called, of Charles and I meeting for the first time in 03, 20 years. And
that's amazing.
And that was the first time like meeting in person, but that whole story, like, just never forget it.
Wow, that's magical.
Too much time.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about, because like I'm still very much, I get that excited every time I go to a convention. I meet the same people and I'm like, oh man, there's just, I love being a part of this world,
Yeah. And by the way, guys, Paul's Twitter or X is linked in the description below. If you go there, you'll see his pinned comment with Charles Martinet years back. It's pretty cool. So
the first picture with the closed eyes, that's the first
Classic.
photo. And like, some of them are better than others because I close my eyes sometimes in flashes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Man, it's amazing. Wow. Well, actually, honestly, thanks for telling us that story.
Yeah.
I think most of us
great.
really appreciate it. I think it was a magical story. It is kind of crazy that he would take the time to call you back during dinner like that, or answer the
What
phone.
a guy.
Like,
super freaking cool. And like, my interaction with him, I've seen, replicated in some capacity 100 times over the last 20 years of how he talks to people. And it's so funny. People are set on a time at Nintendo, Capcom. The higher up you are, the more important you are. You have to be here at 6:12. You have to be here at 9:15. Like, you might have a security guard walking with you to make sure you get there. And Charles, sometimes he's like specifically at a booth, talking, taking pictures, and sometimes he's just walking from point A to point B. Not supposed to do stuff, but he will stop along the way and tell the security guard like it's okay. He'll stop along the way and talk and take a picture and do a little voice thing and shout out to, you know, this Spanish Nintendo channel and shout out to Nintendo Italian fan page. And like, so I know like it's not just me. He's awesome to everybody he's with, and like
He sounds like a very humble person.
Oh, terrific. And that's why he's going to be it's a big deal for him to be Mario ambassador, because there will be live shows where with audience interaction, and there's nobody that personifies the character as well as he does, because he's just a, you know, legit good guy.
Yeah, I love that they essentially made up a job just so that they can keep him doing cool stuff. It's like, that's not a Mario ambassador's not a real job, but it's awesome that he gets to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. It is very, very cool. But let's move on. Unless there's something else you guys want to address regarding this topic. No? All right. Well, cool. And it's still Mario related. I feel we might as well just combine, like, you know, move on to the next Mario topic. And that is Mario Wonder Online. So there's been a little bit of a back and forth, and to tell you the truth, it's annoyed me a little bit. Why has it annoyed me a little bit? Because it's happened a few times already where people are like, oh, is Mario Wonder Online? Probably not. And the only reason I take issue with this conversation, not that I don't really take issue with it, because people are spotting different listings that are maybe having additional implications, but they're all ultimately saying the exact same thing that was being said on the website day one when the game was announced, which is basically that this game will require a Nintendo Switch Online membership for certain features, right? In so many words, right? And so, you know, when we think about that, right, what does that mean exactly? Well, it might not mean much, because we've seen these kind of listings for all sorts of Nintendo games that don't have a significant online component. There might be something. There might be a time trial or a leaderboard. There's a number of things it can be. It doesn't have to be online multiplayer, right? Which is what everyone kind of wants. So last week, Nintendo of Europe tweeted out, hey, you know, join up locally with your friends. And by only saying locally, the implication is that there's no online, non-local multiplayer. And what's funny about this is that while Nintendo of Europe tweeted this, they basically just rephrased the same information that's been on the website since day one. But it was a topic of conversation again because of it. And I guess you could argue Nintendo was reiterating this phrasing that seems to imply that there isn't, right? And now there's this Japan website that says the Japanese Nintendo webpage for Super Mario Bros. Wonder says details of online play will be announced at a later date, which maybe you could argue is a little different. And it might be a little different, right? Jury's still out. But I think regardless, there was always going to be details of online play being announced at a later date, because we know there's some sort of online component. That none of that has changed. We know there's going to be something that's online, but the online play doesn't necessarily mean multiplayer in the sense of how you can move around and explore the world as you can in local play. I'm not trying to say that it's not going to be there no matter what. There's no hope at all. But typically when there is online play, Nintendo just says there is. They don't hide it. Like you look at 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, it's advertised. They're not advertising it here. Could it be that they just want to hold back some surprises? Sure. Nintendo does that. Nintendo held back on talking about the depths for Tears of the Kingdom until the game was basically out. So, you know, while there were hints, there was no blatant like confirmation of it until, you know, we actually were told about it from previews. So, you know, it's possible that Nintendo could be being oddly secretive about online play. I'm just skeptical, and I feel like we're this conversation just kind of keeps coming up because there's not really anything else to talk about right now. That's my take. What do you guys think?
It's interesting how it came up because, you know, them specifying couch co-op, we can rule that out, but what do you really need the online component for if it's not something gameplay centric? Unless if you need an online for something that they haven't shown yet, like maybe a ghost run, you know, compete against the top players speed run, so it's not a multiplayer thing per se, but it's more than just a leaderboard. Because correct me if I'm wrong, you don't need NSO to activate Super Mario Odyssey's online functionality, do you? Or do you? Super Mario Odyssey has
I've
online
always had
functionality
NSO, so I
Don't
can't
know.
confirm or deny.
because Luigi's Balloon Pop, you know, where you compete against other people's times. That is that.
I want to say you do, but I don't know for a fact. I let me see if we can figure this out real quick. Does Luigi? Okay,
Because if it's something as simple as that, then that would say, maybe that's the online component that's necessary, and it's like a leaderboard and or a feature they haven't shown, which is a, you know, slightly opaque silhouette version of Mario, Toad, Daisy, Peach, Luigi, whomever running through a stage, and you could compete against that person's, you know, top time trial. And there you go. There's the hidden internet thing.
All right, so
internet connection.
this is the Super Mario Wiki. So if maybe take this with a grain of salt. But on the Super Mario Wiki, it says, unlike certain online features in other Nintendo Switch games, a Nintendo Switch Online membership is not required to play Balloon World.
Okay.
Which I find interesting.
Then does the website for Mario Odyssey say it needs any sort of online then?
Good question.
Because it shouldn't.
It's also an early Switch game, right? So they're probably still sorting out what they do with what, you know, figuring out their standardized things they do.
Nintendo Switch was a free online platform for 18 months. And NSO didn't become a paid thing until September 2000.
That's probably it. That's probably why.
When did Balloon World come out?
I mean, it wasn't. I don't remember.
Which one?
Luigi's Balloon World. I remember it being a little bit after the game.
Okay, so when you go to the Mario Odyssey page, like where you can just buy the game from Nintendo's website, at the bottom here, I'll show it to you guys. Really do like how I can share this and everyone can see it, because like remember, like only people on stream could see it with a delay, and you would have to go check the stream.
You have to wait like 8 to 10
now
seconds.
Now I just literally share it to you guys in real time.
So much nicer.
If you go, this is the Mario Odyssey page, right? When you go to the bottom, it says warrant. Okay, that doesn't count. A Nintendo Switch Online membership still separate is required for save data cloud backup. This would have been added after the fact because this didn't exist until later, right? So most Switch games have this, and then this part is also interesting. Paid Nintendo Switch Online membership required at the time of purchase and redemption. So like this is something we see in a lot of Switch games, and there's not really anything you need paid to enjoy the features of Mario Odyssey apparently. That these things are just kind of there most of the time, regardless. But now let's take a look at. Let's see, can I search 3D World on here? Yeah, I can. If we click 3D World.
3D World is full-on multiplayer.
Right, and they literally tell you that there's online right from the beginning. Pounce and climb through dozens of colorful courses, multiply the fun by teaming up with or competing against friends locally or online, right? So they just tell you straight up, right? Like, so that's why when they don't tell you straight up in Mario Wonder, it has me skeptical. Now, the caveat to this is that this is an enhanced port, right? So they may have wanted to kind of tout a new feature to make people more likely to buy it. So that might be why it's kind of showcased there. But let's check in the bottom of the page what it says about this game. See, this part's the same, right? Pretty much. This part's the same, pretty much. There's supposed to be 2 asterisks. So there's this asterisk. Nintendo Switch Online membership sold separately. Yeah. It's. I mean, there's this additional asterisk here because there are some online features that the Mario Odyssey didn't have. And then when we go to Mario Wonder, there we go. Mario Wonder, it doesn't have anything like that. Of course, they can add it later, right? If it's trying to be a big surprise. Mario Party Superstars has online, right? It does.
Yes. Both of Mario Parties have online.
And here, when we check the bottom, yeah, I mean, it has these extra asterisks here because there are some online features that are needed. So it's tough.
I would hope for online, but yeah, nothing we've seen seems to confirm or deny it. But it's not looking great.
Yeah, I would say I'm not expecting it. I'm not expecting anything. I think there'll be something, but I don't think it's going to be the same local multiplayer online. I hope I'm wrong because I want that to be there, but I don't. I think we've seen this too many times from Nintendo where they don't tout online local multiplayer, and we're like, oh, well, maybe they'll add it, and they don't. Like, I mean, I think they added online multiplayer DLC for Mario Maker, I think. Was it? They added something to Mario Maker 2 way afterwards, and I think it was online multiplayer for that one. I could be mistaken. But for the most part, when a game comes out with just local multiplayer, it's just local multiplayer.
It was the original. I think you're thinking of Mario Party because they came out with an update for Mario Party to add online. Because I'm pretty sure
I think you're right.
All the functionality for Mario Maker 2 in terms of like being able to play other people's levels and do all the online stuff was there at the beginning.
Could be. Yeah.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't, because that'd mean it would be a lesser version than the original game on Wii U at launch.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say on this. I think we're going to get news on Mario Wonder pretty soon. The game's coming out in October 20th. We're 2 months away. We do need more news. So I think, I think this debate will be cleared up soon.
Here's one that I don't think I've seen anyone talk about. So, you're going to have the first. Maybe I'll make a video of it tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe. Will there be a new line of Super Mario Brothers amiibo coming out this fall? Elephant Mario and, Hippo Luigi and anything else. I mean, they're going very big with this. It's very character driven. I mean, we've only seen Elephant, but I doubt that it's going to be just Elephant. There's probably more, unless if it's like Super Mario 3D World where it's very cat centric. So unless if this is very elephant centric, and even if it is, one new Elephant Mario amiibo, but I have a feeling that it'll be a little bit more animal themed or character themed or object, stuff. That's a cool talking point. And what would they be used for outside of, what would they be used for in that game? Because you could already transform into it. Would it be like an automatic drop of the elephant power? I need it. I lost it. Bloop, there's an elephant drop.
I mean, Nintendo could literally just have it give you coins. They don't really care that much about the functionality these days.
I mean, it could be the
as long as it does literally anything in the game. But yeah, I like the idea of it just giving you the power up.
Yeah, I mean, they want to be extra crazy. It could be an alt skin of the power up, but
new amiibo. I could use some right here. Some new Mario Wonder amiibo.
They would sell.
I mean, I love amiibo, so I'd be down for it.
They do tend to take a while with most amiibo. I mean,
nowadays.
Yeah. Because we're getting
you're still getting
Zelda and Ganondorf amiibos for the holidays. But that may also be time to kind of help bolster Tears of the Kingdom sales towards the end. That makes sense. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to make a video on it until I have some material. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not going to guarantee anything, but if you see me, as they say, oh, could there be amiibo added Mario Bros. Wonder? Holy smokes! I got the
You'll be
idea
the first-
here.
You'll be the first person, because 2 months from now, when it's there, you'll be like, "Hey, I called it 2 months ago."
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I was playing,
Yeah.
but
I might squeeze into my predictions at least. Yeah.
I would buy them because I'm a sucker for those amiibo. Like
Yeah.
and they've
I love
gotten
amiibo.
progressively better. Like the Cat Mario and Cat Peach, like they're really cool. Like
Yeah.
texture on it and stuff too.
Mm. Oh, it'd be cool if like Elephant Mario, you could like the cloth, like the clothes is like cloth, but the skin is smooth. All right. Yeah, it'd be cool.
Yep.
It would be cool. Anyway, I don't think there's much else to say on the Mario Wonder online situation, unless there's anything else you guys want to add.
No.
Can't wait for the
All right.
game.
Just
Yeah,
hope it
no,
has some
I'm
online.
hyped for the game. The game's gonna be a big deal. I'm super excited for it.
First
Even
new
if it
2D
doesn't have
Mario
online.
game in forever. The first one that's not a new series 2D Mario game and even longer.
Yep, and I'm gonna play it by myself.
Although
Probably.
one last thing about the online multiplayer, I do hope it has it, because this is the first time I've looked at 2D Mario and been like, man, the multiplayer doesn't look like the most annoying thing I've ever seen in my life, where you're just bouncing on everybody, killing each other on accident all the time. You can just go through people, just run around freely. It looks amazing. So I do want to play it multiplayer, but I don't usually play local too much.
Yeah, I was actually playing Cuphead with my cousin last weekend, and that was fun. Not
Mhm.
impacting each other too much. Although I will say,
Yeah.
playing co-op is harder because there's more things going on screen, so it's harder to kind of focus. But Cuphead is probably going to be
That
a
game's
tougher
already
game than
brutal.
most of Mario Wonder. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think any of Mario Wonder is going to touch Cuphead, and I don't think.
Well, I mean, some of the late game levels,
maybe.
the later second half of Mario games actually can get pretty tough. But Cuphead's tough from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we're ready to move on to our final big topic. You guys agree?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Switch 2 hint. What am I getting at here? I know some people disagree with me on this, but here's the story. I'm just going to literally show you guys again. I love that it's just way easier to just kind of present this to everyone.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, so this story comes from Nintendo Everything. They actually translated this. As soon as okay, things glitched for a second. Anyway, so in an interview with NHK, Shunto Furukawa, the president of Nintendo, had something to say. So here's the translation. While there is no particular technology we are focusing on at the moment, we are conducting research on a variety of new technologies. However, I believe the most important thing for our company is not seeking new technologies for novelty's sake, but rather considering how they can lead to revolutions in the act of play itself. The idea is that if we become convinced that incorporating a certain technology can provide customers with a fresh and surprising experience, then we covet its research more strongly, making investments when necessary as well. So, I think this is related to Switch 2 because they're talking about technologies that they're researching, working on.
Right.
So what is Nintendo's next big technology? Their next big system. And I do think this is a read between the line situation here. And my take is that they're saying they're not focusing on a particular technology, and they're just kind of focusing on what they can do to revolutionize play itself. And when you think about that, I think that really fits what the Switch is. So yes, the Switch has this switching mechanic, right? Like that is a big deal. But the Switch is kind of a culmination of a lot of their innovations, but put together in a way that's very efficient and intuitive, and it fits a lot of people's different play and lifestyles. And that's why I think it's great. You look at some of Nintendo's prior systems, they kind of focused on one specific gimmick, and that they try to have that be like the big core main draw, like 3DS is 3D, Wii was
Oh, am I froze? Sorry, can you repeat?
No,
Oh.
Andres is froze.
He did freeze. Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the last part of that.
Yeah, I don't know either. Chat, can you hear us? I assume not.
Yeah, because on the YouTube side, he's paused there as well.
Yeah.
Oh, but can they hear us? Yeah, good question.
We can hear
Oh,
his
no,
music.
no.
I can hear his music still going.
Yeah.
Oh, he says he's calling back. I see him on Twitter. Oh, his PC crashed apparently.
Oh no. So we're only talking right now through his. Oh yeah, he's not. He's not.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
I don't know what the music's playing through. I'm curious. He must be playing it through this.
Oh, Nishquick says I could hear Brandon and Paul.
Oh. Maybe because the call's still going?
Maybe. I just
That
asked
must be
him,
it.
what can you see?
I mean, it
and
does say we're
hear?
still live, as I see.
Yeah.
Well, Andre's PC crashed. He should be back soon, guys. I was about to type that in the chat, but I guess I don't need to. Yeah, I don't know how that works. Because I mean, I have no idea.
If they say that they could still, it's just kind of weird because on the YouTube side, oh, there's Andres.
This is lit. The stream did not crash.
Welcome back.
No, I think it's because
weird.
this StreamYard's like hosting a stream on your channel, so our feed's still going there. So independent of you, it doesn't really matter if you're there or not because StreamYard's the one doing the stream for you, not necessarily you. You're just adding your input, your camera input, audio input. Everything else is done through StreamYard.
Yeah. Something weird about my camera. It seems like it's zoomed in, so I have to zoom out extra. But
yeah, I noticed
whatever.
That. It's better though.
Yeah, I zoomed it out more. But so my computer crashed, but the stream stayed, right? So it was just me that was gone, correct?
You scared me with that pause. I thought you crashed again.
That's impressive.
Cool.
Pretty sweet.
Cool. All right. So another good reason to use this software, even if my computer fails me, the stream will maintain. All right. So how much making fun of me did you guys do while I was gone for about a minute or two?
All of it.
Oh, damn it.
Your reputation in the toilet.
Oh, well, this probably was there already, so it's fine. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, where I was at was just talking about how you look at the past Nintendo systems, right? They've had these gimmicks. They kind of like a core thing to draw you in. And I kind of get the sense from this interview from the president of Nintendo is that while there I expect that there will be innovations, my perception of what this is suggesting is that they're not looking at one specific thing to really reel you in. And when you factor this on top of what we've heard about the Switch 2 with all the rumors, like the credible rumors from like Eurogamer and Video Games Chronicle that it's very similar to a Switch, this is going to be more of an evolution rather than a revolution. So it is going to be a sequel to the Switch, and there may be some nice improvements, but it's not like they're going to come out with, like, I don't know, like it's trying to think of something random that they would do that would make sense, like the Switch on wheels, right? Like you can play your Switch, but while driving on a bike.
The backpack Switch. It's got you just wear the backpack. Yeah. It's got battery internals.
The
in
Switch
there.
cycle
Just plugs into your Switch.
Yeah,
but no, I think generally I understand where you're coming from. My perspective is like pretty much the same, but slightly different. Like I think he's talking about, because he mentions like not doing a new technology just for novelty's sake. Like he wants to do a technology that makes sense. Like the technology they focus on for Switch. I mean, it isn't necessarily some like insane, wacky concept. If you really think about it, it's just, oh, this is a handheld with a dock that lets you play it on your TV. But the fact that what the Switch can do and how much it offers, and the fact that nobody else, you can play home console quality games pretty much on the go. It's just it's not really a new technology per se, but it's a new use of it that just went really well. And I think they're more focused on, ideas that actually bring something super good to the table that they can use consistently. Because, like with the Wii U, they had the gamepad, and while that was cool, and they did some cool stuff with it, with like, what's that big one that launched with the console, that like theme park kind of one?
Nintendo Land.
Nintendo Land, yeah, and that was a great use of the gamepad. And then we saw some other decent uses with like Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD. Yeah. But the asymmetrical gameplay just wasn't something that was consistently, like, it wasn't the new thing going forward. It was just a gimmick that was wacky and novel, but not something that was the next gen, direction of gaming or anything. So it didn't really take off and give the Wii U any kind of selling power.
I feel like we're on the same page. Like, I don't think we disagree.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's just a slightly different direction on the same kind of take.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, when I talk about how, like Nintendo went these different directions, in some way it's kind of casting Nintendo's prior systems in a negative light. But it's not so much about casting them in a negative light, but more so casting what they're doing with the Switch in a positive light. Because it's incorporating a lot of innovations, but the important ones that really matter. And then, it's doing everything in a very efficient way so Nintendo can pull it off. And I think it's what's special about the Switch is that it's a hybrid system, right? Like, there's a lot of value there for a fairly decent price. Like, you look at the Wii U, it was $350, right? It came out way before the Switch, and it wasn't a portable system. It was a semi-portable system with limited power and not a lot of support in terms of games and poor branding. And all those things kind of came together and were a lot of issues. Like, the gamepad itself was very expensive. Nintendo had to do put a lot of money into just the gamepad. So that limited the amount of money they could put into just like the resources for the actual power of the system itself. And then the gamepad also required a little bit of extra horsepower to utilize on top of that, right? Kind of like how also like the 3DS. Like, the 3DS is really cool, but to do the 3D effects, it was expensive because you had to have actually 3 screens, because there was the bottom touch screen, but also the top screen was actually 2 screens together merging to create that 3D effect. And that also required additional horsepower, and it also impacted resolution. So you had these really cool gimmicks. They were neat ideas that people really enjoyed, but they came at the cost of other resources on the system, and they had to have high price points. Like, remember, the 3DS launched at $250. Nintendo had to do a quick price drop. So I think, what was it, $170 or $180, and they had to launch the ambassador program because it wasn't catching fire at that price point. So they had these gimmicks that kind of took away from the overall goal for the systems, and it just didn't work out well for them. But for the Switch, it's incorporate everything that they can in an efficient way while still maintaining good value and the horsepower that they need. Now, obviously, now in hindsight, right, like now the Switch seems kind of weak, but back in 2017, I think a lot of us are blown away by what it could do, because it was offering console quality games, but it also was a portable system that was offering console quality games. So that was kind of crazy. So I look at this interview and I think this is good news, because I think it suggests Nintendo is moving in the same direction as Switch, which is arguably the happiest middle ground they've ever been in. And it brings in the largest core gamer audience. It's something that an audience that's around to stay, right? Unlike the Wii audience, which was mostly casual people, that was just for a small period of time. And it's not that Nintendo won't have innovations, but it's going to be more focused. That's my take.
Yeah, well said. I agree. Sometimes you need to experiment when you're down. Sometimes you can't help experiment because you're that type of toy thinker mentality of a developer that just pioneers technology, But then, sometimes it can backfire, and you use too much of that valuable R&D on something that doesn't work, and that also requires the system to be kind of forever held back, so it doesn't have its full potential. We saw this with Xbox One versus PlayStation 4. Xbox One in the beginning, some of that valuable RAM needed to go towards every Xbox One being able to work with Connect 2.0. And that took up a lot of that power. If you look on the paper, Xbox One, PS4 are very comparable. The PS4 edged it out because it was able to use all of its RAM just to games, a little bit on the CPU, running things on the menu. Xbox never had that because every Xbox had to be able to run Connect, even though a lot of people never even used Connect 2. They didn't even come with it after a while. The Xbox One X doesn't have that port on the back. You have to buy it separately to connect it. And Wii U, same thing. Only 2 gigs of RAM that console had, and 1 went to the CPU, and that was a lot of draw to have this gamepad work. And I don't think Nintendo Switch needs to be, not to put it in a bad way, too innovative with the next system in terms of a third analog stick or 3 rows of shoulder buttons or nothing like that, because they just nailed it. Like you said too, they've reached this happy medium of they have a giant install base, they have active users, not just 130 million people playing that own it, but over 100 million people actively playing. That's a
90%. I think last I heard, like about 90% of all Switches out there have been used in the last year.
That's tremendous. And that's why they're in no rush to really reveal that next console, which means they could cook that software longer and come out with a better, high quality software first year lineup. And I would be surprised if it was anything too different in form factor. Not to say like I don't see them having new Joy-Cons. Like I could see new Joy-Cons, or maybe something that you could take the 4 buttons out and swap in a D-pad, maybe like interchangeable face plates for button configuration. This is a thought that I had way back when it was NX. I was like, how cool would it be if you could take out the 4 face button layout and then buy an accessory that slots in N64's 6 button, or swap in and put in the GameCube's 4 button layout, like interchangeable things. Like before we knew it was Nintendo Switch, maybe something like that where it's cool and it's useful, functional, not integral to the system, doesn't take up a lot of processing power to deliver this new vision, because the new vision is just, we're doing what we did, more good quality games, and like some hardware innovations here or there. I think it's going to be a very software-driven generation, but Nintendo always does something different with hardware. They almost always innovate in some way with a controller or something that's unique to them. So I don't think it'll just be more powerful, but I don't think that other thing is going to be too kooky.
Yeah, I mean, with the Switch, we had it's not new to have an IR sensor on the controller, but it was in a weird spot, and they did new things with it. But then we also had HD Rumble, and both of those are kind of just like novel technologies that are barely used. In fact, I'm curious if they regret using the IR sensor at all, just because they have to ship that with every pair of Joy-Cons, and the amount of software that uses that is extremely slim. So that thing barely ever gets used. I'm curious if they'll do another type of. I'm hoping if they do something else that's like HD Rumble or improved HD Rumble or any kind of other novel idea, that they actually like use it, because they keep coming out with these great things. Like I love HD Rumble, but not a lot of games use it. Now they did use it on Pikmin 4, but it's not a lot of games recently came out use it. I don't think Tears of the Kingdom uses it. Not a lot of games use it for the most part, and it's kind of disappointing, especially when you get like the PS5 and it has like a better form of HD Rumble essentially, and it's used in like a ton of games. Like I would like if Nintendo comes out with another little novel idea that they actually use it in most of the titles.
Yeah, I think we saw like a patent. There's been a few different patents. There's been a patent for like a new type of control stick. There's been a patent for scrolling shoulder buttons. Both of which I would have to see in practice for me to be like, oh, that's a good idea.
I think they came out with a patent for joysticks that have like when you get like a professional like steering wheel for like your game, and the steering wheel like force feedback, that's the word. It would be force feedback for the the joysticks. The joysticks would actually like push against you with like motors. I think that could be cool, but it wouldn't be probably used a lot. But I mean, it's similar to what is in like the triggers on the PlayStation 5, which is used pretty often.
Maybe they could innovate with the dock. Like what if the dock can also pair as like a dock, like as a charging station for not just the Switch unit, but also the controllers. And I know you can plug in a USB, but it's kind of wonky. Like imagine it's just like you put it on top, right? Like
for like pro controllers.
Yeah, like it's just kind of like almost like a magnetic charger. It just kind of doubles as that. It's a lot more convenient. I think that would work pretty well, especially. I thought of that because I was like, oh, we have like force feedback control sticks and also like resistant triggers, and the HD Rumble is kind of like the new DualSense for PS5. That might impact battery life quite a bit, and the Pro Controller battery life is pretty good. But if battery life takes a bit of a hit, it'd be nice if charging was a little bit easier. So. If that dock is maybe just kind of a little different, maybe you could do that. And to pay kind of homage to the people who really miss Wii U, what if the dock is done in a way where the screen is entirely visible, right? So you can even use that screen as like a little bit of a mini map or something if you wanted. It could be a second screen, especially if it's an 8-inch screen. It's a little bit bigger. Now, the caveat to that is that if it's far away, might not be too useful.
It would be a very, very specific setup you would need to make this like actually convenient and better than just hitting the plus button to pull up a map.
Yeah.
It would. I don't think people would do it because I don't think it would be way too niche, and I don't think developers would put in the time to make it a feature. But it would be neat. But I think it's just one of those things where it's just too niche of an idea.
Yeah.
And then it also changes up what's your experience docked versus handheld. You couldn't have that experience handheld unless if there's some tethering technology to work with your smartphone or something like that. So it could be the Nintendo Switch one stop.
You buy a second Switch to just have a second screen.
Buy it. But I do like the idea, a slightly angled backwards dock that has an open face. So at the very least, the Nintendo Switch could be, an update, a notification, a nice
have a clock display,
screen clock, a cute little animated GIF, a low power mode version, but a medium power version where it's like, a Mario lava lamp, just some nice Zonite technology from Zelda just coming in and fading in and out, like something. Like that simple would be kind of cool because the dock, when it's in your entertainment system, it doesn't look all that cool. The Super NES, the N64, the GameCube, those were pieces of art that that looked neat. The Nintendo Switch dock, it's rectangle plastic, it's fine with a Joy-Con. It gets a little bit more colorful, special, but
yeah,
a dock where the screen is basically a glorified screensaver. Even something like that is just simple enough, but it says new because the dock doesn't do anything else but charge, but the Switch, the screen's visible during that time. And if you want to play it like that, if you're close enough, that also serves as your alternate way to play tabletop mode because it's always charging.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Something I'll point out with the Switch, I believe the idea was because the screen sticks out a little bit when it's docked, is that it can technically, it can technically tell you things at the top.
It tells you like when it's charging.
A very little thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of left it at just that, but they could expand on that if they wanted to. The thing is, though, depending on your setup, it might not be visible, right? Like I know some people shove their docks in all sorts of weird angles, and oftentimes my dock is not visible depending on the setup. It might be twisted horizontally, it might be behind the television. So setup doesn't always work for everything, and I think it's trickier when you have to be able to see the system. Because most systems in the past, you don't necessarily have to see them, So I think that I mean, I brought up some of these ideas myself, but I'm kind of almost like arguing against some of my ideas. But Nintendo would have to find a way to kind of balance that.
Yeah, I do like the screensaver idea though. Like I loved back in the day, back before LCDs. Everybody would just have a screensaver. You get your cool little pipes animated going down on Apple. I remember that one. It's fun. There's a ton of screensavers. They're kind of coming back now that OLEDs are being more of a thing, and you need to like refresh the pixels on them if you're gonna keep it in sleep mode, so don't get burn in or nothing. But I love screensavers. So if it was just like let you have it as a screensaver or clock or something, I think that would be awesome. Especially if it was an OLED screen still. Because that would be a lot less distracting at night.
That would be
perfect
neat.
Black levels.
That would be neat. I wonder, how that will impact the system long term. If like we have a screensaver, will that ruin will the screen not last as long?
I mean,
if it's on more often,
it should be fine.
Yeah, I say that because
on an
I
LCD,
had hard reset my
yes.
Switch. I had to hard reset my Switch again today. Like there are times I try to turn it on and it just doesn't. I have to pull it out, hold down the power button for over 20 seconds, let go, tap it again for it to turn back on. I believe my Switch is dying.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think it might not be related to the screen. It could be related to the battery.
Well, I wasn't trying to say it's necessarily with the screen. I'm just saying that it feels like my Switch wasn't meant to last this long.
I will say that there's a reason screensavers went away. And if it is an LCD, then a screensaver may not be a great idea because the backlight only lights for so many hours. But if it's an OLED, screensavers, as I said, they're coming back for OLEDs because you need to refresh the pixels constantly, so you're not burning in the image. So I mean, an OLED should be good for that, but it depends on the screen type, I guess.
People's desires in having themes, they'll be overwhelmed with.
Oh
my gosh! Not just themes, but now I could have the theme visible at all times.
But I think people who are in the system would like that. Yeah.
You brought up the number one reason why we shouldn't believe that this is going to happen. There's not even themes on Switch. Why should we be hoping for screensavers? Ugh.
Well, you never know.
But maybe one could always dream.
Yeah, you never know. Well, I think we're ready to jump into the Q&A. We agree?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump into Q&A now. All right. So, guys, any questions that you have that maybe I missed, you can bring up to me now in the chat. At me, I will try and get to it. And time is running out on the poll. I see we have 75 votes in, and it's a close one. It's a close one. Does Metroid Prime 4 break through and sell more than 8 million? I'm not going to tell you what it is until I close out the vote, but I'll be closing out the vote in a few moments here. So, but before I get to that, let's check in with a few chats here. So, let's see. Chicken Smooth adds me. What do you think about wireless connectivity for the Switch 2? Is it possible, or is that a Switch 3 feature?
Do they mean like you're playing in handheld mode and you don't have to dock it? You could just stream it to the TV and still see it on your screen? Is that what they're referring to? I'm not sure what they mean exactly by wireless connectivity.
Like, yeah, I mean, I guess my interpretation would be like, well, Switch is pretty wireless as it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But unless you mean, yeah, like being able to kind of stream what is on the Switch to the screen. Now, the problem with that is then you have whatever you're doing on the screen has to be you're running it from the Switch, right? Like whatever the Switch is running, that's what it is. It's running off its battery power. So what happens when the Switch when it's docked, it can run at a higher clock speed and not worry about draining power because it's connected to a power source. They limit that when in portable mode because of battery life, and also it's on a smaller screen. You don't need as high of a resolution, so there's a lower spec range. Yeah, okay. So Kick It Smooth specifies in the chat streaming an image to the TV for dual screen capabilities. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but I guess I just wonder, like, how beneficial is it to do it? Like
Yeah, because he's saying dual screen compatibilities. Does he mean that what's streamed onto the TV would be a different
separate
content?
image,
like the Wii U gamepad kind of deal?
like simulating the gamepad experience.
But then you have to run 2 separate displays off of Switch in portable mode.
Right. It's not even the docked version. So it's running at lower clock speeds to consume save battery life, and then do 2 images, which does require additional horsepower.
Essentially double the horsepower, basically.
We kind of talked about earlier how like this was something that limited the Wii U by doing the 2 screens. It made it more challenging. So, yeah. I guess unfortunately, it just seems like it's just too much of a horsepower / battery consumption issue for it to be
if there's a
thing.
game that's specifically meant for that, that's like, built with that limitation in mind, I'm sure they could make it work. Obviously, they did dual screen stuff on the Wii U, so they could make it work on the Switch too. But do they want to spend time and resources and make that a feature that's probably going to be barely used, like the Wii U gamepad? Essentially, why would they want to mimic their biggest failure as one of the big features for their new console?
Well, I mean, the Switch kind of does mimic some of their biggest failure in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, but this is like the feature that didn't catch on.
Yeah.
Being able to play your Wii U on your couch, not on your TV, was always a good feature. That was never the issue with the Wii U.
Yeah.
Or something that wasn't utilized. It was utilized all the time. You could do it for basically any game.
Yeah, like I would like it so we could play DS and 3DS games on Switch too. Like that is
nice. But again, that's such a niche, like, retro. It's just like one specific thing. I think Nintendo's trying to get away from technologies that only do like one small niche thing and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you got to think: is there enough reason to implement that technology, right? Like, can they do it? Yes, they can do it. The Wii U did it, right? Yeah. And I mean, like, the Wii U gamepad's bigger than what the Switch is, and the Switch is more powerful than the entire Wii U, right? Like, it's just kind of crazy how much better they got over those few years. Yeah, I want to say yes, but because I would be cool, but I don't see it. I want to see it, and maybe Nintendo could be like, yeah, we're doing it. So I guess what I'm trying to figure is there another reason? Like, if there was another reason to do streaming between the Switch and the dock, and having separate imagery, like if there's another reason, then I could see them being, because we do this already, let's implement DS and 3DS Virtual Console and allow the 2 screens to support. Like, if there's another reason to implement the feature, then I can see it. But I have a hard time thinking they would implement like the dual screen technology for like their mainline games that are coming out now. That seems hard for me to believe. I had an idea, but it sounds expensive. Yeah, so the idea is the Switch 2 is going to be a dual screen system, right? So it has 2 screens already, but the main Switch unit is would be just the main screen, but it does kind of have like a little bit of that clamshell design where there's a second screen you can flip up. But when you plug in the Switch unit, you actually can take off the second screen, plug in the Joy-Cons to that, and you can use that as a second screen, streaming it to the dock for dual screen support.
That'd be wild.
It would be wild. very cool, but probably extremely expensive, and it would not make sense to kind of get that to fit into a mass market price. So, and would that even be a feature that people be like, oh, we're gonna buy the Switch 2 for that? Like sure, some people will, but will it be like does that have mass market appeal? And I'm not sure.
For the amount of money that would cost to make that kind of thing work elegantly, no.
It would be fun.
It would be fun. But by the way, I just received a DM. Not to go back to an old topic because we're kind of moving forward.
Okay.
But Charles Martinet will not be in WarioWare Move It.
Oh.
And he will be in the Luigi's Mansion 2 Dark Moon remaster, as that is an old voice that will be touched up.
Okay. So he's not doing a new voice work, it's just being remastered. The audio.
In some capacity. Remastered audio.
Yeah.
That kind of leaves Super Mario RPG as the little bit of a I'm not sure.
We don't know about that one. Okay.
No.
It is interesting.
But Wario, that means that's one more game this year. WarioWare Move It. What is it? Is it September?
It's November.
Sure. Or no, November. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So strange month to release that.
Yeah, we'll hear a new Wario too.
Yeah, I think it's November or October, because Detective Pikachu is in the other month.
Oh yeah, see, Nintendo's pretty stacked for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it was really just August and September that they kind of have to get through. So
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
they could shadow drop something in September like Prime 2.
Yeah,
I believe it. I got that hopium. All right, so Samuel Talks About Games has renewed their membership, been a member for 7 straight months. I'm glad to have you around, buddy. And asks, what kind of games do you think are coming before Switch 2? Really good question. I think F-Zero, the GX remastered. I think Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD. I know, I'm crazy. And I think that Peach game and that Luigi game that already announced. And I think there's going to be at least the Fire Emblem remake might come out before then. Yeah. Prime 4 is a big 50-50. It's either cross-gen or it's coming out in the first half as like the big title. But I feel like it makes more sense. Yeah, I feel like it makes more sense for it to be cross-gen. But because there was like those rumors saying it would come up by the end of the fiscal year, and then Andy Robinson said it's the last big Switch game. What does last big Switch game mean? Does that mean cross-gen, or does it mean before the gen, right? So Prime 4 is kind of like I'm wishy-washy on that one. I do think Nintendo needs a couple new games to come out before they move on to Switch 2. Like I don't think they can get away with having all remasters, but if they have 1 or 2 new games that come out and it's kind of like they're sandwiched with remasters, people will be like, all right, that's cool. Because like I think the F-Zero GX remaster is going to be like a hype remaster. Like it's not going to be like a piss poor remaster. It might even be a remake. Like supposedly Next Level Games is working on it. And if it's Next Level Games, that's not some like outsourced thing. I think Nintendo bought them recently. They're behind Luigi's Mansion. Like they're responsible for some of the best animation work from Nintendo. So like those cutscenes might be redone really well. The GX already looks like an amazing game. It's aged incredibly well, but if it doesn't take that much work to make it look amazing. Like if they add online play with a little bit of extra content, like it'll go a long ways. So maybe it's just going to be like such a good remaster. It's almost like an F-Zero GX 1.5 or something. So maybe Nintendo will be like, hey, this is kind of like our new game, even though it's a remaster plus Peach. I'm not sure. But definitely I feel good about, Peach and Luigi I feel good about because they're confirmed. Twilight Princess Wind Waker are remaster ports, but they're really anticipated ones, so I think that'll go over well. F-Zero, as I'm arguing, I think people really like it. If it is what I think it is, I don't know for a fact, but if it is what I think it is, then it's gonna be pretty good. And maybe Prime 4. There's a Kirby game. Actually, they'll probably throw in a Kirby game there.
So many Kirby games.
So maybe. Thing is, I would love it if it was a Kirby Air Ride remaster. So, which would be another remaster. But
By the way, Next Level
Yeah.
Games, they are wholly. I mean, I can just read this quote. Next Level Games is a wholly owned subsidiary of Nintendo Co. Ltd.
Yeah. I will tell you this though: the September Direct is going to tell us what those games before Switch are. That's because it typically what those do is it kind of outlines the beginning of the year. Now February Direct might announce something for like the summer potentially, so there might still be a few more games that come out before Switch that we get in the February Direct, but I think we're gonna learn about one or two more in the September Direct that we don't know about yet before Switch 2.
Yeah. Do you think a Donkey Kong comes out this generation, or is that a Nintendo Switch 2 title? Because that's one big game. That's one big franchise that never really left. That's always been pretty successful. That kind of skipped Nintendo Switch, with exclusion of, Donkey Kong Country Returns, or Tropical Freeze. But that was a port. So like DK is missing a new outing.
So the reason I'm 50-50 on Prime 4 in the September Direct is because I think there is almost there's less of a chance, but still a really good chance that Donkey Kong is the big new game that they announced in the Direct. So if, in my opinion, it's either Donkey Kong shown or Prime 4 shown. Like I would love it if they show both, right? But I feel like Nintendo's going to keep some things close to their chest, I can see Donkey Kong being announced in the Direct, and that could be like a first half game. Like imagine if it's kind of like the Kirby's Forgotten Land of 2024. So they do like it's not totally 2D, it's not totally 3D. I mean, it is kind of more 3D. It's kind of like that isometric set. It's not open world, but it's some really cool 3D environments that we can explore, and it has a lot of that kind of like the stuff we talk about Donkey Kong, like swinging through vines and moving around with some speed as a Kong. Like I think people would be in love. I would be in love with that. That would be an amazing first half game.
Man.
But I think that can definitely come out on the normal Switch. I don't see Donkey Kong being a game that they're going to be like making an idea so crazy that it wouldn't work on Switch. And I think it's a good game just to sell software at the end of Switch's life with the huge install base. So I don't see why they wouldn't put it out on Switch. And we've been hearing about the game for years, so hopefully it's pretty far along.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think it's Donkey Kong or Metroid in the Direct, or neither, or both?
I could definitely see Prime 4 being them waiting to show it. I mean, they've been showing a lot of Mario stuff in the last Direct because the Mario movie. They may want to keep that up. They're probably going to re-show some stuff. Like I would hope to see more of that Princess Peach game, and maybe another glimpse at Luigi's Mansion. Hopefully, I totally agree not running at a horrible frame rate for no reason. So I could see them waiting to announce Prime because it's already been so long. They may have it as a cross-gen game too, so they may want to announce that at the, maybe at the same time as the Switch 2 even. Who knows? So if either one of them I had to choose to get pushed, I would say Prime 4 just because Donkey Kong's more Mario related, and that's what's big right now.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Paul?
My hope is for both, and then I'm thinking, well, like Brandon's saying, Donkey Kong is more closely related to Mario, and then we had Mario and Donkey Kong team up in the movie,
right?
And then with speculation of there being a Donkey Kong movie, and we do know that Donkey Kong is getting added to the theme park.
Right, that's happening next year. Yeah.
So a new DK game does seem likely, but just because it seems likely doesn't mean that we're going to get it anytime soon. It could be more closely paired to when the park is ready, to when a movie with Seth Rogen is coming out, if that's even a thing, So,
there's no rumors about Donkey Kong at all.
Nothing. Which, if it came out, it would be a very welcome surprise.
Right. I mean, those do happen though, right? Like Splatoon 3, I don't think we didn't know it was about to be announced, right? Kirby's Forgotten Land. There was some interviews suggesting they were going to go big with Kirby, and Brandon and I literally had a discussion where we're like, hey, if they're going to do isometric Kirby, that's exactly what they did. But like there wasn't a rumor. It was just like, like logical deduction that it seemed like a good bet. So there is a rumor for Donkey Kong, but there isn't a rumor that Donkey Kong's about to be shown off.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the Donkey Kong expansion is next year. So I do think it's close, but the question is it a late Switch title or is it a Switch 2 title? Because it's not announced yet, it's something that Nintendo could easily be like, hey, we got a big Switch. This is a big Switch 2 title, Like, so that's kind of where it's tough for me. It's very tough for me. That's why it's one or the other. I kind of feel like. I mean, what other game can Nintendo throw into a September Direct to come on the first half that isn't Donkey Kong or Metroid Prime 4 that would help kind of bridge the gap to Switch 2 in the second half? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of options, but like,
I would still
that isn't a remake or a remaster.
I'd love a new Star Fox, but my next vision for Star Fox is pretty ambitious. I want Nintendo to take a little bit of a page out of Insomniac Games' playbook, which they're the folks behind, Ratchet and Clank, and make Star Fox this big universe traveling game across a galaxy with Fox on land, kind of also taking a page out of Ubisoft's playbook for Starlink, because I thought that was handled very well with the storytelling of the characters and how awesome they looked and felt. And you would upgrade your weapons as Fox and you would have different cool gadgets, but it would also be a very airborne game where you are flying and having aerial combat. 4-player online, Slippy, Peppy, Fox, Falco, going through. Just
the online game.
And that's my dream Star Fox game. You're because I love the flight stuff, but I think that they have to do more flight in today's day, and that's why you look at Ratchet and Clank and you say, well, take Ratchet and Clank stuff, make a Star Fox, and then take Starlink's flight stuff, but make it faster like Star Fox is known for. And then this is a fantastic game. Star Fox is marketable too. Talking animals is a cool thing. I mean, Ninja Turtles has lasted 35 years. It's talking animals is a big thing. And when you make them cool, it hits the younger audience, it hits the older audience. That's a show that you could have an animated series. That's a show that you could have you could have a cool movie on that. Like, Star Fox has a lot of potential. They just need to get a really solid game to make people care about it, and enough other things to, expand it to the bigger masses. And Nintendo's sitting on like a powerful IP that's not really used with Star Fox. Sci-fi, everything, it's a recipe for success.
I love your idea, if only because you bring up Insomniac and Ratchet and Clank, which are some of my favorite developers and favorite games. So literally any inspiration from that would in any game is I want that. But yeah, I love that idea. It's great. I think Star Fox is has so much unused potential, and they tried to do something with Star Fox Zero. They came out with that short animated thing, which was really good.
Cool.
But the game just didn't hold up, so it didn't work. And obviously they were releasing on Wii U a completely dead system, so there wasn't really too much hope of revival there. But with Nintendo in good states, maybe they can revive Star Fox and do something good with it.
Tough. I don't know. The thing is, if you do a Star Fox, I'm like, man, that should be on the next system, right? Donkey, maybe that should be the next system.
I think Donkey Kong is something that could very easily be on this system. I also think Donkey Kong isn't the kind of game that would push a lot of units, but it would probably sell a lot of software. So it's probably pretty good for end of life when you have so many units out already.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I mean, and it would work with a Mario movie promotion. Donkey Kong does make sense as a surprise first half title, but the problem is we're talking about a surprise title, right? it's hard to predict something that is unexpected.
Right.
But
Because we're not supposed to be expecting it.
But Donkey Kong is, I gotta think we're less than a year away from a Donkey Kong. I think we're less than 15 months away from a Donkey Kong game announcement.
Oddly specific.
Well, I can explain why I think that. It's just that less than 15 months fits me within the next year September Direct window, right? So I could have said like 13 months, but you typically go in like these 3, 6, 9, 12, 15-month intervals. And the thing is, I believe that there should at least be an announcement of a Donkey Kong game by the time the Donkey Kong expansion happens with the park. That's my thinking on it. And I could be wrong, right? Like maybe they have the park and then they just announce the Donkey Kong game like a year afterwards. Like they can still do that. So we'll see. But let's continue on the chat here. So Netweed09. That's actually, or it was this one I wanted to get to. So Netweed, if Prime 4 is not revealed at the likely September Direct, is that basically confirmation for it being a cross-gen release? Well, I mean, they could announce in the February Direct and come out with it in the summer, conceivably. So it's not out of the question that it won't be a cross-gen. It is a good sign, though. I agree with that. Now, if Prime 2 and only Prime 2 is showing off in the September Direct, I think that's a better sign that it's a cross-gen release. Just because if they do just Prime 2, then they're still leaving out Prime 3 for another presentation. And I think that's kind of suggests kind of like the policy theory, they're spacing things out, positioning Prime 4 for a second half of 2024 release. And if Prime 4 is coming on the second half of 2024, at that point, you might as well make it cross-gen. So, but if Prime 4 is coming on the first half, then, we'll probably... If Prime 4 is coming on the first half, we're probably going to see it announced in this September Direct. But if it's coming on the second half, it's probably... It could be saved until early next year. So... Yeah, I'm looking at the situation with Prime 2. If how that comes out, that'll be more telling for me.
That's a good point.
Thanks. So sweet. All right. So this is a good question. Lethal Lawn, what team would be working on this Donkey Kong game? Well, the rumor is Nintendo EPD. And it's not Retro Studios because they're working on Prime 4. They are supposedly hiring for another AAA game, though. But I think that's years away, probably. And I don't think we're that far from Donkey Kong. The rumor is Nintendo EPD, and I believe that it's one of the many Nintendo EPD teams that's working on it. Yeah. And what's interesting about that, though, is that if we take into account that supposedly there's a 3D Mario that's going to be ready for launch next year, then that would mean that the main 3D Mario team was working on the 3D Mario, right? And so if there is a Donkey Kong game made by EPD, it's probably not going to be like an open world AAA Donkey Kong game. But that doesn't mean it can't be like what I described, right? Like something kind of more like Kirby's Forgotten Land, or maybe like a modern day Donkey Kong 64. I think it's going to be good. Whatever it is, I think it's going to be good. It might not be 3D. It might be 2D again, but I just think it would be weird to send it over to Nintendo EPD to try and do something different if they just do something that's the same. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's something that they could do that make it different if they wanted to keep it 2D, but
I'd hope bring back the bongos and then add a second set of bongos. You play with your hands and elbows.
Maybe
and
the
it's on
dock could be a bongo.
Oh,
yes. Maybe the dock has tactile resistance.
Yes.
So you can snap it up.
And the big innovation is that it comes with a 12-foot long cord, so you can pull out the dock and reach out to most of the living room. Unless you have a big living room, then you have to buy the dock extension cord.
Oh.
And it's $90.
Yes. Yes.
Ring Fit Adventure 2. I'll throw that in there to the earlier question. What could come out before Nintendo Switch 2? Ring Fit Adventure 2.
That'd be dope.
Oh, yeah. I also thought maybe a Mario Sports title.
so they can sell it just like digitally or just physical without the ring as well. So you can just
That
use
makes
the
sense.
same ring. That'd be dope.
Yeah,
I never got
Maybe-
the original, but I heard it's really good, and I always wanted to try it.
it is good. It's a good game. Mario Baseball.
Yeah.
Might be time for another Mario Sports title.
Yeah, I mean, Mario Sports titles come out like clockwork.
Yeah, they
on
might not
Switch,
announce
so.
in September Direct if it's a summer release. They might be announced in a February Direct or something.
Yeah, I could see February.
Yeah. Got a super chat here from Samuel, talks about games. Thank you for that super chat. How do you think backwards compatibility will work on Switch 2? Seamless, limited, none, etc. Furthermore, do you think they make you pay for upgrades? So Brandon alluded to something earlier that I kind of agree with. I don't think we're going to see the IR sensor in the Switch 2. I think they're going to cut that. I don't know if the Joy-Cons will be cut and it'll just be kind of just fused to the system or not. And I just bring this up because the Switch Lite technically can't play every Switch game. So conceivably there might be, if they do something like what I'm saying, there will be some Switch games that you just can't fully use on Switch 2 unless they allow you to connect via Bluetooth with the Joy-Cons. Like if you want to play any Switch game on Switch 2, there will be some games you can't unless you have the Joy-Cons from Switch and you pair them wirelessly. They did that with there was Wii. You could pair Wii controllers to the Wii U. So
it's a different situation, but on it's kind of the opposite situation. On PlayStation 5, like you can hook up PS4 controllers, I believe, but you can only play like PS4 games. You can't play the PS5 versions with the PS4 controller, which is odd. I mean, they could do something like that where it's like, yeah, we still let you use your Switch Joy-Cons for the older games that need it, but you want to play a Switch 2 game, you're going to need the Switch 2 controller. But I would hope that they would just let us use the Joy-Cons normally, unless there's some crazy feature where, they can't for some reason. I don't see why not.
Yeah. I actually am okay with them not letting you use the Switch Pro controller on the Switch 2 if they're going to actually have some significant improvements to the controller.
I would hope, even if there were like analog triggers or a headphone jack or something on Switch 2 or better HD rumble, they would still let you use the Switch Pro controller and just have less features. Obviously,
it's
they don't
kind of
have
like
to do
using
that.
a third-party controller.
Yeah, I don't think you can use like the Wii U Pro controller on Switch or anything.
No. Well,
but I do believe those do different types of Bluetooth as well. So I don't.
It wouldn't surprise me if you might be able to find a way to make it work, but I don't think it's intended to work. Because you can find some. There are some weird things you can do with third-party controllers.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I've heard you can even get an Xbox controller to work on Switch if you really wanted.
Yep, Xbox and PS4, but both of those use just normal Bluetooth now. I don't think the Wii U used normal Bluetooth.
Yeah. I mean, basically, sorry, you go, Paul.
Just going back to that install base where 90% of them are active and playing, that's a lot of people still using their Joy-Con that they've owned for the last few years, their Pro controllers, their wired A's, their etc. So smoothest transition to an active install base that's there is let them use it. Maybe it is just for older games, but there has to be a clear definition. Either it works for everything, but note, some features might not, or just for Nintendo Switch software, and then new NS2 boxes that are a different shade of red or a different, something has to be known that this extra functioning, double clicking kind of analog stick or this rolling wheel R button, that's what's needed, and that comes in the box, but you'll have to buy new accessories for new games. Like this might be the first time where they're really successfully selling an old platform while the new one is out. NES wasn't doing big numbers during Super Nintendo's life. Super Nintendo wasn't doing big numbers during Nintendo 64's life. not to say like I think I could see Nintendo Switch outselling Nintendo Switch 2 on any given month, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo Switch is still doing well enough that like now it's still being tracked in the NPDs, especially if it has a reduced cost. So as many things that can work between both to future proof to get people like into the ecosystem would be good to transfer over. Then again, I'm also one of those people that's not like, yeah, it's like 100% guarantee that this system is backwards compatible with cartridges and the whole thing. Like, I think it should be. I hope it is. But if it's not, I wouldn't be 100% surprised either. You know what I mean? Which would be a little bit of a downer for some. For me, I'm like, it's just another HDMI on the TV. That's the solution. That's okay.
I think for the core audience that are going to keep their Switches, I don't think backwards compatibility is like huge. But I think for like the normal person who's just going to trade their Switch in for the new thing and doesn't want to lose their entire library, it's going to be like a huge deal. I mean, Phil Spencer said last generation was the biggest generation to lose for them because since they're competing a little more directly with PlayStation in terms of like the accounts and like the way they do things, third-party games and stuff. It's like since all their PlayStation 4 games transfer over to the PS5, most people just kept, same system. They kept saying it was Sony because a lot of times, like PlayStation 2, that was huge, but then PS3, people kind of moved over to the Xbox. But nowadays, they're just sticking with the same platform because all their games are there. They've spent hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars in this ecosystem. They don't want to lose that. So I think for the normal person, like backwards compatibility is absolutely huge. But I don't necessarily think that it not having it's going to make the system a guaranteed flop. But I think it will be a huge point against it.
Yeah. Sam was also asking about if they're going to make us pay for upgrades. I almost wonder if they're just not going to do upgrades.
I think most games won't get upgrades. I'm curious if they'll do something like the Steam Deck where because usually with like FSR2 or DLSS or those kind of upscaling methods, you need to go into the engine and like make it work with it. But Valve actually came up with I think they worked with AMD to come up with a version of FSR2 that just works on any game. You can just switch it on at any time. It's not as good, but it would work. So I'm curious if they'll have a feature like that where it's like, and games will hit their target frame rates more, and we have this FSR2 on top that will make it look better. But we're not going to go back in and patch the games too much. Maybe go back in and uncap the frame rate if we think we can hit 60 on a title or something like that. But I don't think most games are going to go in with specific patches, upgrading them to 4K native or, like 60 FPS.
No, it would be a
extra
special
increases
scenario. Like I feel like Tears of the Kingdom might get it just because of like a DLC that might be launching with it. Something that crosses my mind is my brain's kind of blanking. We're reaching the end of the podcast because I'm getting tired. I got up at 5 a.m.
Fair.
Damn it, I'm blanking here. It was about Switch 2 upgrades, lack thereof. I don't know.
If only I could have read your mind before you forgot.
Yeah, I know. I had it, and I'm kind of losing it. Maybe it'll come back to me. But let's end the poll. So I'm ending the poll. It's at 90 votes. It'll pop up here in the chat momentarily. Yeah, and yes. So I asked early on, does Metroid Prime 4 break through and sell more than 8 million? Of those 90 votes, 54% said yes. So the majority believes that Prime 4 can break through. So that's pretty good. Now, for those that said no, I mean, maybe just because you don't think it'll hit 8 million doesn't mean you don't think it'll be the best-selling Metroid game. right? I feel like most people probably think it's going to be the best-selling Metroid game. Maybe that'll be a poll for another time, though. But it's interesting. Obviously, you know, we don't know what's going to happen, so the poll doesn't necessarily mean that for sure it will. But there seems to be an optimism that Prime 4 has the chance to break through. You know, we've been talking about how it's supposed to be a really, really big deal. So, yeah. Wilberforce is asking, how much has the Metroid Prime remake sold thus far? Paul is kind of like the go-to guy for that, but last I heard it was a little bit over 1 million.
Yeah, it was the last official report was 1.09 million. So fair to say that it's still below 1.5, but no specific number between 1.1 and 1.5. If you wanted to call it 1.25, you're probably pretty close, which, you know, isn't bad for a remastered title that didn't have a big marketing campaign behind it, had this staggered release. Yeah, I think it could have done a little bit better, but, you know, it probably will get a little bit of a boost now and again.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with how well it performed.
Yeah, maybe Nintendo could do like some sort of like holiday discount for Prime 1 and 2. That might help a little bit. I mean, I think it's important to note that Prime Remastered has not experienced a holiday. And as you said, it wasn't really marketed. So those things impacted a lot. Like, I bet if Prime Remastered was marketed the same way Dread was, it would
have done a lot better.
Might have been around 3 million. So hard to guess. It's hard to guess that, though.
It's also, we don't know what Prime 4 is going to do. It's probably going to be way more ambitious than Prime 1, doing a lot of new things that are going to draw people in. It's a new game, not a remaster. I mean, think of it significantly better than Prime Remastered.
To put things into perspective, Skyward Sword HD has only recently hit 4 million copies sold after being out for years. Tears of the Kingdom is already about to pass, like, what, 20 million, right? So to put that into perspective, right? So, you know, and Skyward Sword HD was marketed. Skyward Sword HD was marketed, was like the game for months. Prime Remastered came out the same week as Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. I don't know what's going on, Brandon, but it looks like you're in a hurricane. Sounds like it.
No, either.
I don't know. But
not doing anything. I saw the blips too. I'm like, I don't hear anything in my room either. So I don't know. Maybe
it could be the aliens. But Samus, come help us. Kill the space pirates, please. Anyway, so Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, like, that was marketed for a few months, and Prime Remastered was just shoved in the same week as it. So, like, Prime Remastered wasn't marketed. You know, Skyward Sword HD was marketed. Tears of the Kingdom has sold several times more than Skyward Sword HD, right? Like, I think it's a similar scenario, except Prime Remastered wasn't marketed. Prime 4, I think, Paul, right? Like, you were talking about earlier, right? Like, this game they've been working on for 6 years. Like, it seems like they're holding it back, polishing it. You would think they would market it. They marketed Metroid Dread.
Yeah.
A lot.
That was revealed, you know, kind of alongside the OLED. I mean, well, they came out at the same time, too. And, you know, the OLED model being white was one of them. That was no coincidence. That was the Emmy. I think you said the same thing before.
The Emmy edition. Yeah. Such
a
good edition.
To put so much time and effort and resources and to hire all these people to cancel it, to want it done right, to put 6 years behind it, you don't do $100 million to be like, yeah, this thing's going to sell 4 million copies. I mean, technically that would that would, you know, 4 million at $60 a pop. That's 240 million. When you take away what Best Buy and Amazon get, it's still a profit, it's still a success, but that's a lot of time to get in that much when Nintendo, all of their IP, they expect more out of it now. Every game that came out this generation was the best selling in that franchise. Mario, Smash Bros, Animal Crossing, Luigi, Pokemon, pretty much since Red, Blue, Yellow, Green. Like, wow. Well, take away Yellow, but Red, Blue, Green. So I think they have high expectations for Metroid, given this is the new Nintendo. This is peak Nintendo. Now, we're not doing any of this $2 million for one of our big IP. Look at Kirby. Look at Fire Emblem. Everything has been the top. Mario Kart.
Well,
Even the
Xenoblade 3
non-happy
hasn't
series.
broken 2 million though.
Which one?
Xenoblade 3 hasn't broken 2 million.
That's the one surprise where I would
Xenoblade
have
2
thought
did become the best selling in the series, though.
What?
Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Xenoblade 2.
Did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It
It
did.
became the best selling.
That's
So,
true.
I
I'm
doubt
surprised.
that. I don't think Splatoon 3 has outsold Splatoon 2 yet either.
No.
So it's kind of just sequelitis on the same platform essentially.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's such a shame because Xenoblade Chronicles 3 deserves
yeah,
more sales.
that's
Xenoblade
my-
Chronicles 3, if anything, should be more mass appealing than Xenoblade 2.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, there is one element of Xenoblade 2 that probably helps.
I think a little bit of sequelitis though is true, which
Yeah.
is almost Nintendo's own advice that you could argue they probably take more often than not, but what they gave to Ubisoft seemingly, like maybe hold back on
Right.
Mario plus Rabbids, and maybe Xenoblade, more of the same, which it's not. It's a very different game, and maybe
Right.
Splatoon.
Splatoon, I don't understand why they released that game. They did not need to do that at all.
I mean,
They could have waited for Switch 2.
It's a quick, another several.
I mean, the
million
thing
dollar
is, with
sale.
how by the time the gaps, like we could see Splatoon 4 not that long, and we could see Splatoon 4 in 2025.
Maybe. When is that DLC for Splatoon 3 supposed to be coming out, though? Won't that be coming out next year?
Yeah, it looks like it.
So I highly doubt
Yeah,
we'll see
maybe
Splatoon
it's more
4
of a
and Switch.
2026 release, but
I cannot see the game not working on Switch 2. Like them just being like, "Yep, Splatoon 3's it's just gonna stay on the Switch, and well, you guys can go hook up your Switches if you want to play that game, and just wait for Splatoon 4, guys." I don't see
Yeah.
that happening.
yeah. Let's see here. There was a chat I wanted to get to. It's kind of hard to find it here. I don't think I'm gonna find it. Oh wait, yes I can. Yes, I will. I will find it. I will find it. All right. So, Risky asked, "Will Nintendo next console have Xbox Series S power?" I don't know.
I mean, power, no. Similar results, potentially.
I feel like we've kind of said that, if we count for DLS and just modern technology and rendering techniques, that we'll have a game that'll look something comparable to what a PS4 Pro could do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how Xbox Series S compares to Pro, but I imagine they're not
Pretty
too far off.
similarly GPU wise. It's just that
Yeah.
the CPU, RAM, and of course the SSD in the Series S are, a completely different league. But in terms of like the raw GPU performance, they're pretty similar.
Yeah, so I think Switch 2 is going to come in as like the weakest next gen system, but it's going to be like at the bottom threshold of being in that realm, which I guess it will be marginally worse than Series S, which I mean,
It would just have different bottlenecks for Series S than Series S.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you can get close to that and be portable, that's pretty crazy. Obviously, in portable mode, it'd probably be running at a far lower resolution and frame rate and stuff. But well, hopefully frame rate's not that much lower. But you know what I mean?
I think it will be closer to the Series S than say the Switch is to the Xbox One or PS4. Like it won't be as big of a gap. But you're definitely not going to be like, yeah, you can have every single setting and every single target frame rate and, every single ray tracing feature or whatever that the Series S has. Sure, that will work on Switch too. Like, I don't think that's going to be the case. But by and large, you're going to get a version that is going to be comparable. And it's not, I think a lot of times you're going to see resolution maybe even being higher than Series S just because you have DLSS. But I think, yeah, it's going to be something that's, technically a lot weaker, but it's going to have some features that's going to make a pretty big game changer for the system to bring it up closer to that kind of spec.
Okay. We're ending the podcast in less than 5 minutes. I see we're at the 2:55 plus some seconds mark. We're hard cut off before 3. Just saying. So I ask you this, at risking going over. So please be quick. But I was gonna ask. Damn it! I'm so tired. I forgot what I was gonna ask.
Oh my god!
I'm falling apart, guys. I'm so done.
It's okay.
I'm so done. It was gonna be. Do you think? Damn it! It's another thing just gone. I can't. I am so done.
Poof.
I'm so done. Jeez. Next question. Let's see here. All right. April Teniente. Andres Restart. I'm starting to enjoy different Mario games. That's good. I think you should definitely be willing to try out different things. A lot of people, I think, are unwilling to give certain games a try, and that's why they don't perform really well. Xenoblade 3. So, definitely, you should be willing to give other games a try. For sure.
Expand your horizons.
Absolutely. Man, I really wish I could remember the question. I was going to ask you.
Chat?
No, it was to Brandon. It was going to be like a techie kind of question.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dang.
Was
it related to CSS? Was it related to ray tracing?
Not ray tracing. It wasn't about ray tracing. It was
resolution.
I don't know, man.
Just trying to jog your memory. DLSS?
No.
Oh.
No. I can't remember. I'm too done. I don't remember the last question either. I don't remember anything anymore.
It's 11 o'clock for you. It's only 8 over here. So
I've been up since 5. I never took a nap. That is 18 hours. Yeah, it's 18 hours, right? 16 hours. 5 plus 6 is 11. I've been up for 16 hours. 16 plus hours. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just done.
It's all good. It's all good.
I want to pump out I want to do one more question just to close out. I'm trying to force out one more intelligent thought. I don't know if I got it in me, guys. You guys are welcome to have an intelligent thought. Maybe be like, yeah, that's nice. Good one.
Do you think Nintendo Switch 2 launches, in addition to the first-party software, with something big third-party wise like Elden Ring?
Yes.
To really show that this console is right up there. There you go.
Yeah,
we'll probably have Call of Duty. That's gonna be a big
Call
one.
of Duty, Elden Ring, Resident Evil Remake. Let's go. All 3 of those games are coming to Switch 2. Maybe not at launch, all of them, but I bet at least 1 or 2 of them are. And another will come within about a year.
That's a good way to buy faith from the third-party crowd. You know how Nintendo Switch could, run Wolfenstein 2 and Doom, comparable games, visual fidelity a little bit under, but so on and so forth. Yep, this one could do your Elden Ring, and it could do your Cyberpunk and your Street Fighter 6, Final Fantasy 16, or maybe not 16, depending on exclusivity, but 15. Yeah. Here you go. Yeah.
15 would be interesting. Yeah, I think Switch third party is going to be a lot better, and we're going to see a lot more day-and-date releases because the power difference isn't going to be as huge with the Series S having to be already taken into account. It's going to help out a lot. And then, I think we're just going to go a lot more types of third parties. I think the strength of Nintendo's first parties mixed with, a little bit of third party support really helps sell Switch. So, imagine you have all these amazing Nintendo first party games, but then you have probably not the same, but close enough support for third parties that the other system have. I think that's just an absolutely killer combination, especially when you can take those third party games on the go, which you cannot do on the other consoles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the question.
Sweet.
I remember the question. I also think I remember the other. I remember both things. I did. All right, so don't forget it. Don't forget it. Okay, so one is about diminishing returns, and the other is about remasters coming to Switch 2. So, Brian, well, I was going to ask you. See, this is why you gotta stick to the end. Even if I forget shit, I will remember. Right? So, diminishing returns. Do you think, Brandon, that while with Switch 2, because of diminishing returns when it comes to visuals, while yes, there'll be a difference, obviously, between Switch and the other systems, that perceived difference across the masses will be less significant for Switch 2. Because you look at Switch games that are running multi-plat games that are on the more powerful systems, there is a stark gap, right? Like you play like Doom, and you're like, what the hell? Right? You play Wolfenstein 2, you're like, why is this? You play Witcher, like you can see like some serious resolution drops. But for Switch 2, because it's it's a more powerful system, it's going to be able to run games pretty well. Like the standard for game is going to be a lot higher, that people are going to be like, oh, this is how it looks on Switch 2. Like it's not like we're going to play Switch 2 and we're going to see 480p games. Like we're going to see 1080p games. Even if it is like a massive port down, it's still going to look a lot better than anything we've seen on Switch.
I don't think it's necessarily due to diminishing returns. Obviously that is a thing. I think it's less of a factor than some people may suggest. I think the biggest reason it's going to be less of a difference is just because there's going to be less of a power gap. And then they'll have things like DLSS and a lot of technologies that are coming out to help. We're starting to see, or we have seen one title on Switch from first parties that actually uses like modern upscaling features, with Xenoblade 3 using a sort of TAA upscale, if people know what that is. Essentially, it just increases the resolution perceived. But that kind of method is going to be that's like the basis of last generation upscalers, and Switch doesn't even have that. So like you're running all these games at really low resolutions. You have no upscaling really to get it back up. It looks really bad. Switch 2 will have a lot more features to help mitigate issues like this, like with DLSS. Even if you're targeting 480p or 540p, getting that upscale to 1080p or 1440p and having it look good is something DLSS is totally capable of. Whereas other upscaling methods, which are barely even used on Switch, aren't really going to do that, and aren't really things like DLSS aren't available on the next systems. So you're going to see that make up close the gap. It's more about the technologies and the fact that just the power difference is closer, rather than say diminishing returns.
Okay. I do feel like, though, when we account for diminishing returns, that a lot of like with the Switch, Nintendo's been able to put out games that look pretty good for most people. Like the Switch is at a power level that's, it puts out games that most people are like, oh, that's like I'm talking about the casual audience, right? Casual gamers. The casual gamers aren't necessarily looking for like 4K. There's like, oh, that game looks good. Great, I'll play it, right? Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like someone plays Mario Odyssey and you're like, oh my god, this is not in 4K, right? Like that makes a difference. Another example, like I know there are people who complain about Tears of the Kingdom not being at 60 frames per second, but those are people who are used to playing like on PC, right, where they're playing games at 120 frames per second. But most people don't react to Tears of the Kingdom in that way, So I feel like that it does play a role just for Nintendo's overall success with their games. Currently, I think it helps. And to your point with technology, I think that's going to take it to another level. So I think Switch 2, I think things will probably be maybe even a little bit better than Switch 1. The other thing I remembered, and then there's a super chat from Is R3 Light, or I believe ASAP Rel, right? Used to be your previous name. So I'll get to that. But this is last thing that I remembered. So I remember both things I forgot. A point I wanted to make earlier. Maybe there's another thing I forgot. Anyways, whatever. I'm getting to this thing that I did not talk about. Remasters. I'm kind of seeing a scenario where Nintendo puts out a lot of different remasters like Xenoblade Chronicles X, Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD throughout next year and a little bit beyond. And how I kind of envision things, and this is just my perspective, I could be wrong, but I feel that, once Switch 2 comes out, if we're right about Prime 4 being a second half year, that's like maybe the last like there's not a lot of cross gen titles. Like Prime 4 will be cross gen, but the titles and it'll just be kind of backwards compatible, right? And then there won't be a lot of games coming out for Switch that'll be brand new, and the only games that'll be coming out that'll be new, say air quotes new, will be games that are remasters, like Xenoblade X, like maybe I say Star Fox Zero, or maybe a Kid Icarus Uprising remaster, or a Kirby Air Ride, or a Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. So a lot of games that are kind of repurposed old games, those will still see it coming out on Switch for maybe the next couple of years. But like the brand new 3D Mario, the brand new Mario Kart, the brand new Animal Crossing, Splatoon, those games are going to be exclusive to Switch 2. So we may see, it may be the case that, we were having trouble earlier kind of talking about what new games can Nintendo announce for the first half. We were kind of having some trouble thinking of what would make sense because they probably want to save it for Switch 2. Maybe it is the case that the first half of next year isn't going to have as many new games because it is a transition year. And it is going to be mostly remasters. Maybe the Peach game is the only new game coming out next year, and they're just going to put out some really good quality remasters and DLC. That's something else to consider. We haven't talked about DLC. Maybe to help kind of carry things over, that's what 2 and 3 DLC is being saved. Maybe that's why Nintendo is taking longer with Tears of the Kingdom DLC. Tears of the Kingdom DLC, Pokemon DLC, Splatoon 3 DLC. All of these could be positioned as big updates to big games in the first half of 2024, alongside some quality remasters and that Peach game. And that's going to be the content for Nintendo's first half of 2024. And then the second half, they're coming out guns blazing. 3D Mario, Metroid Prime 4, Legends Pokemon game, maybe something else we're not expecting. I feel like Mario Kart, whatever you want to call it, 9 or 10, that's a 2025 release. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for it to be like 3D Mario September, Prime 4 October, Pokemon November, Mario Kart December. Like that would be the most epic like lineup ever, right? And it doesn't have to be one game per month. It could be like one game every 3 weeks or something, but like that would be amazing. But that was the thought. I got out the thoughts. I did it. All right. You feel free to call me an idiot or disagree. It's fine. But I got out the thoughts.
I think it's a perfectly valid what's the word? Scenario. Like it could happen. I'm not saying that's exactly what's gonna happen, but it's plausible.
It's semi-believable.
Yeah.
Like if that's what happened, you'd be like, oh, okay, this is what Nintendo's doing. I do think it'd be nice if Nintendo could add in at least one more new game into the mix. Maybe that is Donkey Kong. But I mean, if we're gonna get Pokemon, Tears of the Kingdom, and Splatoon 3 DLC next year, if they announce a few quality remasters, like that'll do a pretty good job to carry them into the summer.
Yeah.
Maybe the Mario sports title is that other new game. It's nothing crazy. Or maybe you brought Ring Fit Adventure 2, like, it may seem kind of mid, but it's kind of like, we've had
it's first half. The first one.
Yeah. I just meant like the overall lineup. I mean, the thing, it depends, like, because some of the remasters might be really hype. I think an F-Zero GX remaster would be really, really hype. For that core Nintendo audience, they'll be like, oh, this is really cool, So yeah, I think it'll be fine. And if they throw out another Kirby game, because it happens every damn year.
True.
So, I'm not talking about a 3D Kirby. That's a whole other beast. For the sequel to Forgotten Land, that's going to be a Switch 2 title, probably. I bet.
Yeah.
But last question here, unless one of you guys shock me with an insane super chat. Is R3 Lite? Thank you for the super chat. I don't think games are going to be same day on Switch 2 as other consoles. It's an easy cash grab for third parties to stagger release, so people end up buying the game on 2 consoles. It is an interesting point. We've seen a lot of that on Switch. I would love to believe that Nintendo will start to get day and date titles, and we do get some, but Yeah, I think
I
the
think
main point is
Nintendo would want them to do day and date, so they don't need to make a specific ground up Switch 2 version in order to get it running at all, like they do on Switch. They probably wouldn't have to change nearly as much. You know, you take that Series
Yeah.
S version as a base, you downscale that to work on Switch 2. It can come out day and date. I don't think they need a whole separate team like they have before to
well,
make
I
sure
mean,
it works at all.
that depends on the power gap now, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I don't
Yeah.
foresee it being that nearly as big of an issue.
It may be a case by case scenario.
Unless Nintendo comes out with a system that's far, far weaker than we're imagining it is.
I'm going to imagine that the amount we've seen a lot of most AAAs that have come to Switch have been staggered or very late. I think it'll be less staggered and late, but I still think it'll be a thing.
I think it might be a thing early on, but I don't think it will be a continued.
Listen, man. I mean, you can just argue, hey, now here's a portable version that still looks pretty good. So, you know.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be a Switch situation where the games are like, yeah, it's still technically the same game, runs at like 360p at half the frame rate as the other consoles, and doesn't always hit 30 FPS even, but yeah, it's on there. Like, I think it's going to be like a good version of the game that looks very comparable to the other versions and has all the same features.
Okay.
Just maybe a lower resolution. Heck, maybe even a higher resolution after DLSS than the Series S. Lower resolution textures. Maybe you go down to 30 FPS instead of 60. Boom, you ship.
All right, Brandon, listen, I'm gonna have you be the Nintendo third parties and middleman ambassador. You're gonna be like, hey, listen, I know you want to stagger, but just scale it down and be fine. All right, you got
Stop
this.
being greedy, though.
Listen, you got 2 weeks, right? And you'll be like, listen, I'll send you a pack of granola bars if you get it done quick. I'm not telling you to crunch, but you're gonna have a lot of granola bars to crunch on.
I'll give you a pizza party even.
And then it'll be like, oh, then they'll be like, how dare you suggest we overwork our employees? And then you'll be like, no. I'm not telling you to overwork anyone. I'm just telling you to get this game out as soon as possible. And then you crack your knuckles. So,
yes.
Yeah, this is why. Yes, Brandon's ruthless.
Of course.
Anyways, Samuel talks about games with an insane super chat. Yeah, if you guys keep doing this, I'm gonna stay up. You're trying to kill me.
We have to stop the podcast eventually, guys.
Please stop it with the super chats, because then I'll never go to bed. Samuel talks about games. I do thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Insane super chat. Imagine this: Mario Universe, taking the Galaxy formula to another level, having to hop between universes with different physics.
That'd be dope.
See, I'm tired because I'm trying to reread to understand. Taking the Galaxy formula to another level, having you hop between universes with different physics. Oh, different physics. So you have to kind of reassess how the world works. You know, there is something to that idea, because whenever I play a new game, I just love that moment where I can just kind of explore, right? Like when you're left in an environment, you could just press buttons on the controller and just kind of get a feel for the game. Some of my favorite moments when starting to play a game, like just getting a feel for it. So so in this hypothetical game you've presented, Sam, this where we go into different worlds, different physics, it's kind of like that moment repeatedly. Like you have to kind of rediscover the game, and that's kind of cool. It's like, oh, how does this one work? Right? And it's almost like a puzzle. Okay. Oh, how do I jump? How do I move? What kind of speed do I have to reach to kind of escape the gravity of this particular planet? Like, I think there's actually something really genius about that idea you have there. I don't know if Nintendo will ever do it, but I think it's actually a very cool idea, and I think there's something to this. So,
yeah,
one idea. Mario Universe, that's launching for Switch 2, October 1st, 2024. Actually, is that a Friday?
I have no idea.
I'm going to predict when Mario Universe comes out. This non-existent game. The 1st is a Tuesday, so that would be a shock. October 4th. Here we go. I think, yeah, maybe. Anyways, I think that's it. We've reached the discussion. Paul is tired. Brandon exists, and I'm dead. So, thank you all. It's been fun. Really appreciate it. Do check out Paul. His Twitter is linked in the description below, or his X page, and also his website. If you go to his Twitter page, you can see his website is linked there as well, where he does different posts, and you do update us on the sales numbers. And there are some cool pictures he has up with our good Mario voice actor Charles Martinet. So check it out. And yeah, Brandon is
Also here.
Also here.
Yeah.
Also here.
I'm working
All right.
on stuff. It's just not my own stuff. You'll see. You guys will see.
Oh yes, there may be something that Brandon has put a lot of work into that he is collaborating on with someone that he knows pretty well.
Yeah.
You may even see it come out on this channel.
Whoa.
Yep. Anyways, guys, thank you all. We'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.